Yep.
Okay, we're unmuted. We can keep just talking about Keanu Reeves' Shadow the Hedgehog.
Shadow the Hedgehog? Yeah.
Jog time.
Also, yeah, we also explicitly said up front that we're going to need to explain keywords because, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh players don't have access to keywords. Too powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, motherfucker.
At this stage, like, you know, there are a lot of keywords that appear on cards that like were explained when they were printed, but now are just like common parlance.
Yeah, a lot of times with MTG, it's like, at first they just keyworded a bunch, and then from then on they would like try mechanics, and if they ended up like using a mechanic a whole bunch of times and it was like really good and really popular, they'd be like, all right, let's just make a word for this. And they're kind of going a little more towards like being okay with making keywords just for a single set for flavor. They just also put the explainer text on it.
Yeah, one of the things
that makes
that,
sense.
Like, in the last couple years, they've basically come to the conclusion, yeah, people have the ability to like look up a keyword if they don't know what it is, so we're a little more readily available to reprint an older keyword when like at times they would like spell it out because like, is everyone gonna remember what like surveil is? And it's like, yes, you can just use that word, people will know.
Yeah.
Or if they don't know, you know, much easier in 2024 rather than 1994 to like look up what a thing does.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to think like what you had, because like I remember playing my first games of Magic with the set Portal original Portal 1.
Portal made as the most entry level product.
Yeah, it was perfect, you know, like it was in fact my first Magic product, and I was at the age of, I want to say I was 8. I don't think we played it like right when it dropped, but I remember my friend Josh Black getting a set of two Portal decks, and I know our asses played it wrong. We made so many mistakes for sure. God. Also because like that was back when Magic was like extra fucked up and evil. There were things like the pile and things like Mana'd Burn.
Love the stack. In more ways. But yeah, it's a long evolution on a game that's been around over 30 years at this point.
I was gonna say, yeah, like Magic's been, I mean, it was like literally the first card game, wasn't it?
It was the first CCG, the first like
yeah.
You know,
were they intent to like make more cards and have it be a thing that was like constantly rolling along and like adding more layers to it and stuff? Yeah, definitely. Every other card game was like, here's one set deck, do something with this one set deck. Yeah,
like, here's
Uno, you know, like here's
which, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in like small detail here and there. There's actually a really fascinating history of printing technology and Magic, and eventually printing technology coming so far along that it ended up with a revision to the style guide of Magic, which I think is incredible, where like they're really more willing to print like different kinds of like foil and complicated art and all sorts of stuff than they used to, because printing technology has like come farther. The price of cards has gone up so they can afford it.
So there's a YouTube channel called Ristic Studies that does these very in-depth videos about Magic subjects, and one of their more recent ones was about an hour and a half going into the very in-depth nitty-gritty about the evolution of foiling and card printing techniques.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's from the start of like it starts with like Pokemon and how they do their foiling and how that was a starting point
is
for
that how there is the actual most fucked up and evil rarest card of all time, the Magic the Gathering Blastoise.
Yes, the Magic the Gathering Blastoise.
The first Magic the Gathering foil ever printed was Blastoise.
Yes, that was a test print for a Magic the Gathering card with a magic, like, you know, using, because the Pokemon foils in the early sets, base, fossil, jungle, just had like a kind of like space holofoil covering over them.
It was like a holofoil with a texture, as opposed to just being like a single color or like a chromatic application or something like that.
And so like that's the test that got brought over to Magic in Urza's block, and then there's an evolution to. There's a lot of talk in that video about like specifics of the foiling technique and how it would affect it would affect like printing of like white border, black border, or how it would affect like talking about curling of foils and talking about different types. It's a very, if you ever want to see, you know, hour and a half of very in-depth information about that, Ristic Studies is the channel. They have a lot of Magic videos about cards we might see today. Who knows?
Yeah. And yo, thank you for the resub, Noel. Thank you, Burgundy Tulpa. And thank you, Tyga. Thank you for the bits, Fruit Salad Kung Fu. Thank you for the resub, Reldus Yamarick. And yeah, so I think that's gonna be a fun part about today, Co-Buddy, is I'm not gonna bury the lead. Slyo and I designed this a little bit so it would be a lot of fascinating talking points about Magic, so we could be little dorks and explain stuff. Which I think is like fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like one final note about the foil stuff before we move on. That's also interesting because it also goes hand in hand with the acceptance of sleeving cards over time in competitive play. A lot of newer players don't know this, but you didn't used to be allowed to sleeve your cards in Magic.
Yeah, yes, I actually did hear that.
Even more, like, again, as you said, Magic being the first, like, the sleeves that existed at the time would have been like penny sleeves, like the sleeves that existed for baseball cards, you know, like a hardcover top loader, and like you're not going to shuffle 60 of those up. So like for the first couple of years of the game, like there weren't those to exist.
All right, well, shall we get to it before we burn all of our time before we talk about a single card? Okay, let's
cards
go.
time.
Let me swap off character select to... Oh, that's like full volume. The Haley Ace theme. Yeah, so, hey everybody, I'm Ty Tuesday, and joining me today is Slyo9, who you may remember from other Magic the Gathering and Eternal and Pokemon card game and Slay the Spire and...
just say every
A lot of
at this
cards.
point.
Yeah.
Oh, and
That's
Netrunner.
me. That's the one I played. I was world champion of that game. I'm not going to bury the lead on that one this
Thanks,
time.
I appreciate that. Let's just cut the chase on this one. And yeah, so we've worked together as well as a team of top players, meaning our friends Zorak Red, Doc, Number Knower, Alex Ward, and a few others who contributed a bunch of fun ideas for cards. And we're joined by Co-Buddy.
Hello.
Hey, and so you mentioned when you were having us evaluate Universe's cards that you've never played Magic.
Nope, never touched the game.
Which is incredible. You have, however, played, and this is worth mentioning, you've played Yu-Gi-Oh!, you've played Universes, obviously, and you have played Eternal, which is...
Eternal, Hearthstone, Pokemon.
Okay. So a lot of them, just not Magic. Okay, interesting. A fascinating perspective.
It is funny because, I've played a lot of card games. Magic is like my main blind spot, for amazingly.
There's this huge void out there around it. Interesting.
All right. So I figure we should start with some ones that will give you an idea of about where Magic levels power goes, because since you've played multiple games, you know in some game, like, just draw one, do one thing is crazy good, and in some card games like Pokemon, it needs to be like, draw 7, also put a guy on the field, also attach an energy from the discard pile to a guy, also like Shaman EX shows up and gives you a kiss on the cheek and tells you you're doing great. Like there's like a variation, right? There's a spread of where power level is in card games. Or Yu-Gi-Oh, where like one of my cards I always played has like 14 different lines of text just dedicated to, no, you cannot stop this from countering you.
Yeah.
Yeah. question in the chat and like a very brief overview of Magic and such for those not. All your cards cost mana in the top right. That's their mana cost.
Yep.
This one costs 1. You are allowed to play 1 land a turn from your hand, and then so on turn 1 you'll have 1, turn 2, 2 if you're playing lands out. So there's a growing costs to these things, different colors to them, and so this is about as cheap as something can get in the game of Magic.
Yeah, so it's like Eternal where you play your lands, just whereas Eternal is like you pay a number and as long as you have enough of that color, you get to play the thing. This is you have to pay specifically the color required.
Right,
so
right.
You would have
yeah.
to tap like a blue land, and tapping is just the term for turning your card sideways and activating
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah.
So yeah, this first one, Ancestral Recall, it costs 1 blue mana. It has to be blue. Draw 3 cards or force opponent to draw 3 cards. It is an instant, and as you can see, it is old as shit.
Yeah, I've seen this old ass art for Magic before. It always looks wild.
Yeah, old Magic's really funny.
Yeah.
If I'm playing blue, why would I never run this card? This just seems... I mean, it's draw 3 for 1. Like, that just seems amazing.
Yeah, we don't need to beat around the bush here. This is possibly the greatest spell ever printed in Magic. It is like in contest. Also, it's instant, which as a bonus feature. So here's the thing about instants that are fun. So Magic's a game where certain cards can be played on your opponent's turn or like in response to your opponent doing something. So something you can do with Ancestral Recall is you have, let's say, 2 blue mana up at the end of your turn, which is the same cost as, for example, Counterspell, something you can hold up and wait for your opponent to play something dangerous and then just say fuck off and like, banish it basically. Or if they just don't play anything and they say, okay, I end my turn, you go, okay, responding to end of your turn, tap 1, play Ancestral Recall, draw 3, and then your turn starts, you draw 1 more off the top of your deck and you untap all your land. So like,
okay,
being an instant is crazy good in Magic.
Yeah, you can use it at the last possible moment before you gain all your resources back in order to... Why would you want your opponent to draw 3 if the deck contained 3 cards?
Yeah.
Like, easy answer.
So the other answer is this is one of the first cards they ever made in Magic the Gathering, and they had no idea what they were doing.
It shows.
This was no. So a bit of background. They did know that this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is part of a cycle of 5 cards, 1 in each color. This is the one that was at rare.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So yeah, this is Busto. This is unbelievably good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, crazy strong, unbelievably good.
Yeah, in a draw 1 game, of course.
Yes. So.
All right. So here's our next one. This is Shock. It costs 1 red. It is also an instant, and it deals 2 damage to target creature or player. And it has flavor text.
Cool.
That's
Thank you, Togo Goblin Weaponsmith.
It's my best invention since the Rock.
So deals 2 damage to target creature or player.
For 1, yeah. This I want to include this one because I think this is like a good idea of like how much damage flies around for red. Yeah.
A player starts at 20 health in like single player formats, 40 health in some multiplayer formats.
Right. I mean, I have to assume this is good just because it's spot removal. Just on that very basis, like.
So like, how strong are you feeling? Like Busto, like something that's like kind of middling, or something that's like rough?
I wouldn't say like Busto, but it's probably a staple in red.
That's like a really good way to put it, I think. Yeah, this is like a workworkhorse ass card. Shock is really solid.
Like, generally,
it's spot removal.
Generally below, generally you'll find Shock variants that have maybe a little bit more text. This is like the baseline. It's not going to be great. It's going to get a job done. It's a acceptable fine card that you'll enjoy playing.
Yeah, so I am assuming then at 1 mana, 2 damage is probably the average, so to speak.
That's like the break point. Shock for red is like the break point, and it being like targetable and instant speed is really, really nice. So like that's all it looks like. Here's an example of a card that, for example, Lightning Bolt is the red equivalent of that Ancestral Recall we were talking about earlier.
I mentioned 5 cards in sequence with Ancestral Recall. This was the one with red in that set, and this was originally where the line lived. It has gone up and down over the years. This is a reprint of the card, of course. But you can see a 2010 way down at the bottom in very tiny, hard to read text. It's on. But the line has shifted up and down, so sometimes it's Shock and sometimes it's Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, and so like Magic has a lot of different formats as well. There's the one that uses like all the cards ever made. There's the one that uses all the cards after a certain break point where they're just like, okay, that was kind of when we didn't fully grasp what we were doing. We get it from here on. And then there's also like specific formats that are like you can run one of cards and stuff like that. And they'll often have different ones in different parts of rotation, like the very modern set, which is oddly enough called Standard. That one will often have like a Shock will be in format, or it won't be, or like Lightning Bolt will be in, Lightning Bolt won't be. If Lightning Bolt is ever in the format, it really changes the math on how creatures work. It's a lot like how Torch was in Eternal.
I imagine. Yeah,
same thing. So yeah, that gives you an idea of like how strong that kind of effect is. All right, Soul Ring. 1, add 2 colorless mana. Tapping this artifact can be played as an interrupt. That is the old ass way of saying you can just kind of do it whenever.
Okay. So that's 1 colorless mana, which means it can be you can tap any mana for this, right?
Any land producing any mana can cast this card.
And add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
also it's an
even
artifact.
if it's
for what that's worth.
Okay. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but
artifacts are cards that just kind of sit in play, much like the green cards.
Asset, sure.
These are assets. They don't innately pay for things. This one, has text that does. Yeah. But that isn't like an innate part of the card. They mostly sit in play and offer you some benefit.
And there are 2 different types of those. There's artifacts and enchantments, and there's generally the difference is just like what kind of cards can blow them up.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like, even if it's colorless, it's still ramp. Like, it's still, you get 2 free you still get 2 free mana for this.
So the other thing that makes Soul Ring really stupid, because you're right, Soul Ring is really stupid. You can play this on. You can put a land down, turn 1, tap it, put this down, tap it, and then have 2 mana on the first turn. There's no restriction that says you can't just pop this thing right away. And then you get to use it next turn too. So then like next turn you put down a land, and congratulations, you have 4 mana on turn 2, which is dumb.
Seems okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is often referred to as being like the secret bonus member of the like Power 9, where this card is like so good, it's absolutely obscene. This one though has been reprinted a billion times. If you want to see some cool Magic art, look up.
This is a sort of defining card for one of the major formats of Magic, and thus is printed in any deck that they create for that format with cool art for it. So you can use, if you want a more recent one, if you want this ancient one by Mark Tedden, a lot of other places. It's one that's been specifically kind of a defining card for EDH Commander.
Yeah.
I can see why. It seems very strong.
Yeah, really straightforward, really strong. All right. Okay. This would be fun to bring up.
Yeah, hit me with the stupid bullshit.
All right, this is Zodiac Dragon. So this costs 7 colorless and 2 reds. So that's 9 total specifically.
Okay, yeah, I was about to ask if that's in total or.
Those are added up.
Yes,
yeah,
that is in total.
Yeah, so if a card just has like 3 red symbols, that means it costs 3 red specifically. But yeah. So then if Zodiac is put in a graveyard, you can just put it back in your hand. And that's just 8 power, 8 toughness, which is like how Magic defines attack and defense on creatures. Yeah.
This seems wildly expensive for not much payoff. I mean, you get it back every time it dies, I guess, but like, constantly spending 9 mana to put this into play. I mean, I guess it depends, like, what the power level for creatures was back in that day. Because I can tell this is an old card, obviously.
That's true, and that is a good observation. Magic has had like creatures kind of go up and down in power level over the history of the game, for sure.
But I don't see this being good. It seems wildly expensive.
This is wildly expensive.
This card's ass.
Very, very.
Okay,
very,
that's what I thought. I was like, this doesn't seem like it fucking does anything.
Yeah, that's kind of really the dooming thing for this, is it's 9 mana and it has like no ramifications when it hits the field.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do anything. It's just an 8/8 body that, yeah, correctly, you can end your turn again to like put it down, basically.
Yeah, that was one thing I learned playing Hearthstone is cards have to have an impact when played to be really good.
Sadly, also a couple folks are mentioning, it can be used as infinite. No, this card is from a set that its text was assuming that the only way it would go to the graveyard is from play. The full text of the card is when this is put in your graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it worked as infinite discard fodder, then we might have some sort of fun combo potential going on.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that, but
don't worry, it can't do that.
But that is a point to think about on they put problem-solving card text on it later. No, this is from. How much do you think this card's worth?
Quick, before we get to that, Buddy,
oh god,
how much do you think this card costs? It's ass.
Early? Yeah, it's ass, but how early into the game's
1999 is the copyright on the bottom of the card.
Yep.
So that is six years in.
6 years. I mean, I know there's some Magic sets that like receive basically no print run, so
it costs 9 mana. It says so on the card. Great answer, Inverton. Not what I'm looking for, but I
Damn, got it.
All right, so what do you think?
$10?
That's a great answer. It's $350. So
cool.
Zodiac Dragon is a rare. Back when rares were like a super low print rate in the sets, and also
that's what I was
part of Portal 3 Kingdoms, which
this is maybe the lowest print run of a set that existed. This was a set that was based off of Portal 3 Kingdoms was a set based off of Romance of the Three Kingdoms in name, and most of the English cards in it are wildly expensive because they had the most limited print run that the set could possibly have, and most never saw another reprint because you don't reprint Lubu.
Yeah. I was considering including Lubu, but he was a little more ambiguous. Yeah, right. All right, let's slam this bad boy on the field. Oh no, this shit called Pack Rat. this shit called Pack Rat.
Look at the rat in the bottom right doing got this nice face.
He's kind of pogging, like angrily pogging. Yeah. And yeah, buddy, feel free to read through. Go ahead.
Yeah, Pack Rat's power and toughness are equal to the number of rats you control. 2 mana, and it costs 2 mana, and then 3 mana, discard card, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of Pack Rat. Okay. So the idea behind this is obviously you play a bunch of Pack Rats both through playing it and discarding cards. What's the card number limit in Magic again?
4. You can play 4 of a card, and in most formats it's 4. There's one major format where you're on one ofs, but in general.
Three mana and discarding a card feels high-ish for that effect. I'm gonna say this is a deck that I would try to play, but would have very little success playing. So I'd say it's pretty. It's probably something that people tried a lot, but didn't see like a ton of success.
All right. So it's pretty much the complete inverse of that.
Oh, fair enough.
This card was a format wrecker in the draft format that existed format, and was a
draft,
but in constructed as well. Represented a threat that needed to be killed on sight.
Yeah, this thing snowballs out of control. So a couple notes that I want to bring up. First of all, the tokens it makes are a copy of Pack Rats. That doesn't mean it has the same power and toughness as Pack Rats when you copy it. It means it has the same text of as many rats as you have. Also, it doesn't care about how many Pack Rats you have. It cares about how many rats you have. So you can have 4 Pack Rats. Your ass can have 40 rats in your deck.
True. Yeah.
The biggest thing though with this card in all the formats it existed in was that if you played Pack Rat on 2 and your opponent did not kill it, they were never getting rid of the rats anymore, because if they tried to kill your rat, you could make a new rat, and the new rat has the ability to make a new rat. This also means that you don't really care what you're drawing. It's always a rat. Like, I drew a swamp. Well, that sucks. Anyway, here's a rat.
That makes sense. I guess I wasn't thinking too much about how, it makes sense in hindsight, but I wasn't thinking about the rat token having the same ability as
it's really dumb.
Yes. There are a number of other small factors that make this powerful. This fits in decks that has synergies with other things we might see in the future. But the big thing was that this represented a must answer immediately, or you could just wait till turn 5, and then it was you can make the rat in response to the that makes sense. So
it's a little engine in and of itself, and like the fact that you have to run more lands in Magic than you do in most other formats means or like most other card games, you can dead draw late a lot. So having an out for that is just molto bene. Pack Rat is just a lot of factors coming together to make a card that's like easy to think is like, oh, this is cute, this will be kind of mid, and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I mentioned a bit about draft, which is a format that Magic has as a very unique thing to not exclusively it, but a big thing that Magic has, and Pack Rat represents the ultimate in fuck.
If someone pulls that,
you're gonna get overrun by rats.
Sly, I'm sending you a list. I think we should pull one more from this group before we move on to some of our other stuff. I'm wondering which one you think we should pull.
Let's go with number 3.
Oh, Wayfinder? Okay, yeah. That's a great one.
So 3 mana, when Civic Wayfarer enters the battlefield, you may search a library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. If you do, shuffle your library.
What format are we evaluating on? Any of them, honestly. That's the fun thing about Magic. If you can call any of them correctly, that's pretty good. Also we can talk about more.
Part of what makes Magic very unique compared to a lot of other card games is that if you're playing, most other card games only have one constructed format and maybe a draft format if possible, because compared to Magic, which has near a dozen between its limited and constructed formats. So
This might be asking too much information,
No,
but
feel
is
free.
is 2/2 pretty standard for a 3-drop
So-
in Magic?
So 2/2 for 2, like for 2 mana, is what we refer to as a bear, and that's because it's just like a solid ass stat line. Like a 2/2 for 2 is fair as hell, and for a long time, the way you could define different colors was by if they got access to bears or not. So like colors with weaker creatures like blue did not get a 2/2 for 2. They got like a 1/2 for 2 if they were lucky.
Okay.
you can kind of assume, like, as a very generic rule, like equal to mana cost is kind of as far as a baseline to
Okay.
Like
to
vanilla,
assume.
assuming it has no
Yeah.
other abilities. Yeah.
So that you know, there's more to it there, but that's a good generic baseline of like you what you'd expect. So
Sure. I mean, this card seems solid, like good. You just play it and you pull a land from your deck. Like, I can't see why I wouldn't play at some of the. Can't see why I wouldn't play this in a green deck. Unless green has like a fuck ton of ways to ramp otherwise. But
So honestly, that's like a pretty solid evaluation. This is like a workhorse ass card that in lower power level formats that don't have access to everything forever, this will see play. But in formats like Modern and Vintage and Legacy, where you have access to everything that's ever been printed in green, yeah, you don't really see this guy much.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is very much like, you know, it does enough. The land it can grab doesn't need to be green. It can go fetch you up something else
yeah,
you're
just this basic
missing.
land.
So you know, in a deck with multiple colors, it's just fine. This is an idea, a body, a card that they continue to print variations of decades later. So you know,
Yep.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's just fixing. It does its job.
Exactly, and like Eternal, you often want to be playing 2 or 3 or, you know, in some formats, 5 colored decks in Magic the Gathering, and having the ability to pull just a basic and put it on the field is really nice. Now note, basic is a pretty meaningful restriction in Magic, because most people are playing fancy lands that do
Fair
bonus
enough, yeah.
things or tap for 2 colors or something like that. Something that says basic land like this would not be able to pull almost all of those.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think for this next one, I want to talk about one more card that kind of fits in, and then move on to some other ones. All right. You might have heard of this one. So this is Black Lotus.
So, yeah, you might know this one. So
I have in fact heard of this one.
what do you think about Black Lotus? What strikes you?
Well, the fact that it costs 0 mana immediately
You
hits
sacrifice
me.
it though. Think about that.
Oh, who gives a shit?
You have to sacrifice it, so you can only use it once. How good could it be?
Oh! Yeah, and you can totally... You can play 4 of these, can't you?
Well, you can't play this
No.
in anything but war. Like,
No.
you can't
Well,
play this in any
Today?
format.
No, this motherfucker is restricted or banned in every format.
Banned.
Yeah, I think there's like, I think what Vintage you're allowed 1, and that's it.
Yes, you in Vintage, the oldest format of Magic, does
Vintage,
not have
the Flex Nuts format, the look I own multiple $500+ card format.
So yeah, but Black Lotus, this lets you, you know, it's turn 1, I get to play my 4 mana card.
Yeah. Stupid as
Cool.
hell. Yeah, because also, here's the other thing that's really funny about Black Lotus. I've seen in Vintage games where people draw an opening hand with no lands, which is a dog shit idea to keep, but they have a Black Lotus and they're like, I'll make it happen.
Yeah!
And then they do, and it's like, well, all right. So yeah, this thing is
Die.
yeah, this thing is turbo cracked, obviously. Okay, what about this?
Suspend 3. And then cost this card from your hand, pays 0 and exile with 3 times on.
So basically, you banish it for 3 turns.
Yeah.
And then your upkeep is the start of your turn, so it'll count down.
And it is very, very hard to cheat extra upkeeps for what it's worth. Like, there's a very tiny full of cards, and I don't know if I would consider any of them competitive playable.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a quick answer, a question that happened in the chat. If the card's so nuts, why did it get reprinted? That image from before is from the Magic Online printing of it, which was... Magic Online didn't exist in 1993, so they were putting cards so that Vintage was playable on.
It's a much more readable copy than all the scans of the original card. That's why I used it. Yeah, I used it for accessibility, mea culpa.
Yeah, but yeah, so Lotus Bloom.
I mean, this seems worse than Black Lotus, but still, like, good. I think you'd still want to play this, considering... Even though it takes 3 turns to get going, I won't win you the game right at the start. It still ramps you when it casts.
Yeah, $20 is still $20. This thing's still crazy.
Yeah.
Black Lotus, you play in literally everything. This you play in decks that it's like, your life ends 30 minutes from now. But in those decks, this comes down on turn 1 and your life ends 30 minutes from now. Like,
yeah, is this limited? I should ask.
Actually, what is Lotus Bloom's legality? Let me check.
Lotus Bloom is legal in all formats it's printed in.
Yeah, it's legal in Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Commander, Oathbreaker, and Penny, which that's the only ones where it's not just timed out of, basically.
Yeah, it's legal in any of the formats it exists in. It's legal, unrestricted, strong in the decks that it plays in. Very strong. One of the key, that can be a quite key element of them. But
yeah, so I'm not obviously not saying you should do this or it'd be a good idea, but theoretically you could just slam 4 of these on 1 turn, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can just you could set up 4 of them on turn 1, and then
your
3
opponent
turns
would
from that.
be shitting their pants for 4 turns, just being like, "Oh my god, what are they about to do?" Like, yeah. All right, so here's one that I think is interesting. Lion's Eye Diamond. So this
another
also
free
costs
one.
0, correct?
Sacrifice Lion's Eye Diamond, discard your hand, add 3 mana.
Yeah, pretty rough,
huh? Activate this ability only anytime you could cast an instant.
So, a quick explainer on that last line. You cannot, try to cast a spell and then, discard all the rest of your hand and pay the 3.
Sure.
You just can't do... You gotta discard the whole hand. You can't, try to use the mana to cast while you're trying to discard.
This seems pretty bad. Getting the mana is nice, but you're forced to top deck until you draw a card. And I don't... Considering Ancestral Recall was nuts, it draws 3, I have to assume draw is usually relegated to 1 or 2.
Also, another good note to have is when it says add mana to your mana pool. So your mana pool is like your floating tank for the turn, basically, like your imaginary tank, where you hold mana temporarily that's been created. So when you tap a land, you add it to your mana pool, and then you spend it from your mana pool. So it's emptied out at the end of the turn. So this, for example, would add 3 mana to your mana pool, and then if you ended your turn without casting anything, that's just gone.
Oh yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
Same as what Black Lotus does. Black Lotus is a 1-shot that empties at the end of the phase. So.
Yeah, no, this card's ass.
So this card's restricted in Vintage.
This card's absolutely insane. It costs $500.
Yeah, this card is this card is wildly busted in the decks that it's playable. Nothing replaces it in those decks. Over the 30 years that Magic has come around, there are a lot of effects that go off from the graveyard. There are a lot of effects that you can play with that just want you to.
That's fair.
It's not as fake as Yu-Gi-Oh, where Yu-Gi-Oh the graveyard is truly your second hand that you have more access to and like can search through easier. In Magic the Gathering, cards usually are a little more like stuck in the grave, but there's a lot that aren't. And you get to pick which ones go in your deck, so you can pick the ones that aren't.
Yeah,
fair enough.
One of the cards that can get mentioned side by side with this allows you to just cast any card in your graveyard for the rest of the turn, and so you don't care about the fact that you discarded everything. You're able to still play everything from your grave that you discarded, and you can replay the Lion's Eye Diamond from your grave that you discarded. Yeah. So yeah, there are like, this is not like a card you can play in anything because like that restriction is terrible, but the decks that it's in, irreplaceable.
Fair enough.
All right.
I guess I should have thought about how much. I'm beginning to see a theme with what you're showing me.
Yeah. I kind of want to see if you can figure out where's the line for a Lotus to be bad. And Butt Ghost, thanks for the resub. So this one's Lotus Field. This is a land that is hexproof, which means it cannot be targeted by opponents. So you can target it with abilities, but your opponent cannot. Yeah.
There's a different keyword for both players. Hexproof is only your opponent.
Correct. And in the case of Commander, which is the 4-player version of the game, where you have 100 cards in your deck and only one copy of each, hexproof is every opponent, which is relevant. So like some cards will say every player. Commander is where that matters the most. So enters the battlefield tapped, which means you cannot use this on the turn it comes in.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah,
unless you do some other chicanery. And when it enters the battlefield, sacrifice 2 lands, and then tap it to add 3 mana of any one color.
Okay, I guess I should ask. I think I know the answer to this, but I figured I'd ask just in case. So when it says tap, add 3 mana of any one color, would that effect go off if you tapped it to pay the cost of a card?
If you tap this, like, what do you mean by pay? Like, if you...
Like, since this is a land, if you tapped it to play a creature, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's just what it does. That's just
how
what it
you
does.
play the creature.
So
like, you would use this to play a creature. Exactly. So, like, you do all this stuff to put Lotus Field on the field, and then at the beginning of your next turn, it untaps. And basically, from then on out, you have a land that you can tap and just make 3 of one color. So, like, one turn you can make 3 red, the next turn you can make 3 blue, next turn you can make 3 green, and then you use that to cast other cards. Correct.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so if you're using this to tap for spells, it makes triple the amount of what you would expect out of a card.
It acts like tapping 3 mountains at the same time, or 3 islands at the same time, or 3 forests, so on and so forth.
Now, one thing I am seeing.
Yeah.
When Lotus Field enters the battlefield, sacrifice 2 lands.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you play this as your first land, do you have to sacrifice anything?
Correct. It has to eat itself.
It will have to eat itself.
Okay, it does have to eat itself. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not, you can't like trick it by only controlling one. You gotta eat it.
Sacrifice in particular is one of the more brutal ways to destroy a creature. Sacrifice gets around a lot of protections, yeah.
So.
That effect, it being a land, is what's making me think this is a little, like, above average. I don't think it's as insane.
Well, don't forget,
as
it being a land means you can only play one a land a turn. So,
true,
like, being a land is
true.
often, like, kind of a downside in some ways.
I feel like this is, like, it's playable, but not, like, amazing, would be my read of it.
So this card's a menace. This card...
God damn it!
Yeah, this card's
so
a
the big
menace in
thing
the
about
format
this
it's
card
in.
that makes it The big thing that makes this card a menace in the formats that it's in is that there are ways to untap the land that cost less than 3 mana.
Fair.
And if you have ways to do that, you can start generating wild amounts of mana in order to kill your opponent in some sort of combo. Generally, this isn't like a card, again, similarly, less than Lion's Eye Diamond. You can just play this in another deck and it'll be fine. Unlikely to get killed. Unlikely, but not impossible. Thanks, Cranko.
So I just want to bring up, this isn't for you to evaluate. This is just, they basically printed this card to answer Lotus Field and to answer like Hexproof in general.
This card exists very specifically because they wanted a card that could answer Lotus Field. It destroys up to 1 non-basic land that each player controls and then lets them go grab a basic. It is missing the word target, so it gets to pierce Hexproof effectively by fiat.
Yeah. It's like a very awkward workaround to make Lotus Field a little less cracked.
So yeah, this is the kind of shows that that card has a lot of legs. Lotus Field is a more updated version of Lotus Veil, which doesn't have the protection it has.
So Lotus, we went from a whole Lotus Field, which was a reusable 3 of that was just very expensive, to a Lotus Petal, which is only pequeño.
It's tiny.
Yeah, it's only 1, huh?
Only 1, and it does cost 1 of the cards in your hand, which is an easy cost to forget about, unless you played a lot of games,
Yeah, because you do have to... You play it and then sacrifice it. For 1. It is free, though.
1 mana.
It's free. And it gives you 1 of any color. And is an artifact.
See, my gut is saying pretty much like the exact same thing I said about the last card. Which, considering my track record with these fucking flowers so far, it hasn't been great.
So what are you thinking?
You know what? Just because I'm going the opposite of what I think. I think this card's dog ass.
This card's cracked.
Like awful. Fuck! This card is, again, restricted in vintage. Is like a $20 common from the set it was printed in.
So there's another important detail to mention with Lotus Petal. That it is another extra edge that these free cards that come down and give you mana do. Is there's an archetype called Affinity in Magic the Gathering. In particular, Affinity for Artifacts is the big one. What it is it's cards that'll cost like 8 generic mana, but they have affinity for artifacts, which means for every artifact you control on the battlefield, they cost 1 less. So, for example, you can put down Lotus Petal and it will make everything else in your hand cost 1 less, and you haven't even like used it yet.
But there's again, like much like the Lotus, any of the Lotuses from before, if you have some sort of combo where you need this amount of mana to get going, this gives you this amount of mana -1. What if you could just draw the coin from Hearthstone in your hand?
Yeah.
And get to turn 4 early.
I mean, I want a record for what's worth. I was originally thinking this card was good. I just went the opposite of my gut.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna do 2 more real quick Lotuses, so we can do these quick. So this one's Jeweled Lotus. It is. We'll talk about this real quick because this is gonna be a quick one. Add 3 mana of any one color. Spend this mana only to cast your commander. So your commander is in the. This is only for the special format commander, where it's a 4-player game, 100 card decks. You get 1 of every. Can only have 1 of each card other than basic lands. And then you have your commander who's off to the side, who you can just kind of cast whenever.
Yes. Yeah, you build your deck around 1 specific card that you always have access to. It's just like if you have the mana to cast it, you can do so. And the other 99 cards in your deck have to match the color of that card. So if you have like a mono black legend for your commander, your deck is mono black. And then And every time your commander dies, you can play it just goes back to that spot. You can play it for an extra 2 mana every time it dies.
Yeah.
But this can only be used for whatever your commander is.
One spell out of the 100 you've brought one.
Yeah. How often do people run mono color commanders?
Commander is all over the place. Commander is everything from mono to 5-color. I, for example, just ran a 2-color deck, a blue-red one that was really successful. But people also run like 5-color decks. Like I ran a Sliver Birthing Pod deck that was 5 colors. It was absolutely insane.
You'll probably find 2 to 3 colors as the like more.
I mean, even if you're not like, even though it's only 1 out of 100, you're running 100 cards. I don't see why you just wouldn't run this card.
Yeah, this thing's insane. Yeah, and also like it's really important to cast your commander. You build your entire deck around them. So and you always have access to them. They're just always basically they're like the 8th card in your hand at the beginning of the game. So like, yeah, it's really good.
This is only castable. Only can cast 1 card. Still like a $100 card right now. Like this thing is ridiculous. Anyway, here's a snake.
And here's the final Lotus of the pile. And what if it was a guy?
Here's a little buddy who lives in the Lotus field.
What is land? Or is landfall just that?
Landfall is just the text after it. It is a marker for the beginning of that text, which is whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If you see landfall, that just means that beginning.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, add 1 mana of a color. That's a 2/1.
Yeah, so when you play a land from your hand for your your land for turn or any way that your land would come into play, it makes a mana that lasts for that phase.
I mean, it seems like a card your opponent basically has to answer. Like, I mean, it's probably gonna die once your opponent turn takes over. Though I'm thinking in Hearthstone terms, and there's actually interaction in Magic Gathering, unlike Hearthstone, which is a garbage game for idiots.
Because like you can't attack like creatures can't directly attack another creature like in
yeah. Though we saw Spark, and that was a
or shock, and that was 1 mana for 2 damage. Yeah. And like ping is really common. The term ping is like a 1 damage tag effect. Yeah. So Lotus Cobra.
Yeah, I have to imagine this. I feel like there's just. I mean, you've shown me better options for ramping. And this one is specifically only in green too, which I mean, that's not really a big deal. But the others can be played in most every deck. I don't know. It seems fine.
So this card's been printed into standard twice, and it's been like the centerpiece of multiple decks.
It's
every single time it's been around.
Warping every time like this bitch gets in play.
Yeah, like this is, as you said before, this is kill on sight. Needs to die, because if it doesn't, you're going to be seeing some major problems very quickly. There are ways of getting more than 1 land to enter play on your turn rather than just your normal. And green loves
in
to
particular
do that.
has really good access to putting down multiple lands in a turn. Or Magic also has a thing called fetch lands, which are fairly common in a lot of stronger formats. And what a fetch land is it's one that you put down.
Evolving Wilds would be just a generic example of one. Like Evolving Wilds is a common card that gets printed in almost every set these days. That's just sacrifice it to go grab a tapped basic land. And if you play it from your hand, that'll give you a mana. And then if you use it to go get the basic land, that'll give you another mana. And so you can use that with some powerful types of that.
Whereas normally without Lotus Cobra, that turn would have been play a land, tap it for 0 mana, and grab another tapped land. So you have 1 tapped land and 0 mana, and now instead you have 1 tapped land and 2 mana, which is crazy.
The fact that this also makes any color of mana makes it do again,
Yeah.
you can fix up. So, but yeah, you do want this dead. This Cobra is a...
Yeah, I mean, I figured you wanted it dead. I guess I kind of maybe overvalued how much removal there is in...
Yeah, well, no, it's not even that. It's just like this card generates so much value that like forcing your opponent to have and use removal is good enough a lot of times. Like if there's a creature that's like you need to kill that's awesome. There's a common saying, Bolt the Bird in Magic the Gathering, which is Lightning Bolt, that one red card we talked about earlier that's like format defining, does 3 damage. There's another card called Birds of Paradise that's a 0/1, so like as low as a creature's stats can be without just puffing into a pile of smoke on the spot. And you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and that's it. That's all it does. It costs 1 green and it makes 1 of anything you want. And it's pretty commonly understood that like it is still worth blowing the 3 damage spell on that 1 damage target because like it's too important to slow down whatever. Like your opponent's trying to ramp to something, stop them. It's too key.
And like spending the removal on this means they may not have the removal later for your 4 mana creature that like now is it's go time.
Yeah.
So
another good thing to bring up is this was in the same format as a card called Fabled Passage, which was a land you could play and then tap. And when you tapped it, you would sacrifice Fabled Passage, search your library for a basic, put it onto the battlefield, tap, shuffle your library, and then if you had 4 or more lands, which basically meant if this was, you know, your turn 4 or later, you would then untap that land. So it would just be like you play it, tap it, pull out another, and untap it. So this now, with 1 Lotus Cobra plus 1 Fabled Passage, kind of becomes a little bit of a Lotus. It kind of just like pulls 3 mana out of its butt.
That was its most recent printing. Its first printing was with like the second set of fetch lands as well. It was right next to Scalding Tarn and Friends. These ones are like sacked to grab a mountain or island. So they have a restriction on that, but you don't care because you're making a bunch of mana with your Lotus Cobra. So,
all right.
Anyway, they've done a lot of these like Lotus cards over the years. The hit rate on a Lotus is like 90%.
I was gonna say, note to self: if it has Lotus on it, it's broken.
Yeah, there's also a lot of Unglued and Unhinged, which are like the jokey sets they print that aren't usually legal, and they have like different kinds of like one of them's like Black or Lotus, and it's like fuck, it makes 9 mana.
That one taps for 4 mana, and you have to tear it to pieces.
Sick. All right.
So we got a buddy here. This is a little bit. I think this is the first multicolor card we've seen. So this thing costs
green, blue, red.
3 mana, but of 3 distinct colors. And then,
which, as you know from Eternal, is a bit of a downside.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not later Eternal, but.
Yeah, and depending on the format in Magic, it also becomes vanishingly real. That's correct, Mega Man.
So 3 gets 2/2. Activate this ability only once each turn.
So that lets it turn into a 6/6. A good note about abilities like that is since you don't need to tap the Savage Knuckleblade to use it, you can like attack in with it, and then on reaction to someone blocking it, you can then spend the mana and pump it.
Sure, okay.
In most instances, it also means you can use it multiple times. This first ability does have the restriction on it, whereas the rest you could use multiple times, though the second and third ability also are unlikely to be. Haste on its final ability just means it can attack on the turn it is
played.
Okay.
So basically, you can put it down, pay 1 more red mana, and immediately swing it. Or like the blue ability would be like if somebody uses a card to say like destroy Savage Knuckleblade or whatever, you can tap 3, pick it up, and then be ready to recast it.
Yeah. Of note, none of these say they are sorcery speed, so they are instant. You can use them at any point.
Sure.
They have to say they need to be sorcery speed to be sorcery, which is like on your turn.
3 mana 4/4 is above average for stats based on what you said, but I'm looking at it and I see all these words on it that all have, except for the fire one, all have pretty big costs to them.
But cost you are guaranteed to be able to play if you played the Knuckle Blade fairly, for what it's worth.
Yeah, so,
Sure.
So how are you feeling on him, buddy?
My gut reaction says it's kind of mid.
Yeah, your gut reaction is your gut reaction is better than most of the Magic the Gathering communities.
This card was pretty hyped up on its release, and basically was a flop. It didn't do much of anything. Part of that was that its color combination wasn't really as powerful as some of the others.
Of that group?
Teamer is this
Teamer,
one.
yeah, and Teamer was really weak comparatively in cons.
Oh, so green, red.
But not, yeah, but yeah, the triple, but also just like the triple combination for a body that its only effect is able to attack and block. It doesn't really get across
that's
the
true
line.
too.
It doesn't help you out in any way other than dealing damage.
Also, it lacks what is referred to as evasion in this game, and like Eternal has it as well. Like flying in Magic is one where you need a flying creature to block another flying creature, or like trample, which is if it's blocked by something that's too small to block all of it, the extra damage rolls over to the player, that kind of stuff. And this just has none.
Yeah, so if a 1/1 creature walks in front of this, your opponent takes 0 damage, and they.
Yeah, I was gonna say, effectively by paying that the top costs, you're effectively, assuming you don't play anything else, you're effectively it's just a 6/6 body, and that's it.
Yeah, and like that can be effective. It just needs some help around it, and it very much didn't have that in the world this lived in.
Yeah, 6/6 body for 6 too, effectively. Yeah, it just seems.
It's like it's one of these things too where like if we were talking like super old ass Magic, this would probably actually be like pretty goated. This would actually be pretty nuts. But in like the years it was printed, which was like shortly after I got out of college, so like 2014, 2015, something like that. I'm not
sure this would have been in any era. The problem in older Magic is that three colors is uncastable in like most old formats.
Good point. I forgot 3-color was just dead.
Because like your fixing back in old Magic's fixing was like really, really poor, so a 3-color card had to be usually very expensive or nuts to be playable.
But yeah, so yeah, as you evaluated pretty well. And another thing is, Magic is a game where the opposite of Hearthstone, the attacker just says, these creatures are attacking, and then the defender gets to decide where blocks happen, like Eternal. So yeah, not having evasion can be really devastating, because there's a lot of ways for your opponent to just poop out a little 1/1 token and just be like, my Garden Gnome blocks your 19 mana Knuckle Blade. Yeah. Exactly.
I simply will parry this.
Now, a different card that is also incredibly modular. Morphling.
I was also gonna say that has another one that has a lot of text.
Yup.
So 5 mana, untap Morphling. Morphling gains flying until the end of the turn. Morphling gains Shroud until the end of the turn.
Shroud being specifically, so when we mentioned Hexproof being only opponents, Shroud is both. So you can't target it either, which sometimes is scary.
Yeah, I mean, until... Okay, end of turn, end of your turn, so your opponent could still blow it up on their turn.
But you can activate it at any point. If your opponent attempts to blow it up with a spell, you can pay
sure,
1 blue mana, and if you have it, you can do that. So it's only that turn, yes.
And also can gain flying until the end of the turn, and you can untap it. This card seems...
And it can gain +1, -1, or -1/+1.
Oh, I thought for some reason I thought that was +1/+1. But
yeah, so you can give it power at the cost of toughness or toughness at the cost of power.
Sure, yeah. I mean, 5 mana is expensive, and you are dumping more mana to play each of these abilities, but it's so It's so easy to adapt this card to any potential situation you're in that it seems pretty strong.
To answer a chat question, no. As soon as a card's game state is registered as having 0 toughness, 0 power. So 0 toughness, it immediately pops. You can go negative on power. You just can't go negative on toughness.
Yeah, if you want to make this like a 0-10, it will go to that. But yeah, you were saying that.
Yeah, it just seems so applicable in a ton of different situations. Like you could pop the -1 attack to block something, and that would normally die too. You can use it to block flying units. You can use it to avoid it being destroyed. And of course, you can also just untap it by paying a mana. So you can actually do all the stuff I just said.
So another good thing. A good note is in Magic, most creatures, you tap them to attack, and tapped creatures can't block.
Right, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this card seems great.
Yeah, this card was very much a centerpiece of blue decks at the time it was printed. Was a wildly strong card for what you said, the flexibility of this being able to answer basically any state.
Also,
in addition,
1 mana fuck you to anything that's not a full board wipe is incredibly good. This also existed. This also existed in a world with a lot of weird ways to get mana faster than normal, so that 5 cost was not a problem in its day.
Sure.
There's also one other bit that made this card much more powerful in its era rather than current day.
I'm just gonna shut up and let Slyo attempt to explain how damage rules have changed over the course of Magic the Gathering. Because now we use damage on the stack. But Slyo, what did we used to use?
Well, we don't use damage on the stack anymore.
Or sorry, we don't. Sorry. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah. So to explain, this card has the ability to swap power for toughness and toughness for power. And so you would reasonably think, if I want to put this into combat, I could choose to make it like a 5-1 in order to beat a 5-5, or I could make it like an 0-6 in order to not die to the 5-5. But what if I told you that at the time that this was printed in Urza's block, rather than damage happening, you look at the 5-1 and you looked at the 5-5 and they both bopped each other, you would look at the 5-1 and look at the 5-5, they would fire their shot into the air and it would hang, and then you had time to use abilities. So you could take the Morphling, who has a 5 power shot flying in the air, and go, I will pay 5 mana to make my Morphling an 0-6. And then it survives. So it gets to fire its shot at 5 power, and also avoid all the damage by spending all of the mana into its toughness. This was changed in 2009 to just be, look, when you go to damage, you just look at the numbers, they bop each other, there is no time for abilities in there. But for a good chunk of time, for a good decade, there was you kind of had to think of it as though a volley was fired, hanging in the air.
Creatures could cast damage.
So that's so wildly complicated.
Yes, that was actually and that was a rules change within Urza's Saga at the time, the 6th edition rules, but that's a whole another bit. The big point is that Morphling under current rules is much weaker. Because it cannot do what it did back in the day, where it would be basically, if you had infinite mana, Morphling could act like a creature with 5 power and infinite toughness. Nowadays, it can only act as
that could also
either a 0.
Also had evasion and could say fuck off to removal without being bounced to your hand, without losing tempo. It just stayed there.
So, but very strong card. This is a card that has seen a lot of variants, much like a Lotus. You will see variants on Morphling in modern formats, maybe in different colors, with a similar art style, with the 2 figures looking at each other, or even in blue has a different type of card. So,
All right, this one
be a good shot.
This one's gonna require a little bit of explanation. Namely,
Oh,
That card's nickname was Superman. Yes.
yeah, it was yeah. Morphling was Superman for a long time because it could just stop anything and fly and do yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Aurelius Fury. X means you can pay as much generic mana into it as you want. So if you want to tap red, white, and then 9, then the X is 9. Yeah.
Aurelius Fury deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Tap each creature dealt damage this way. Players dealt damage this way can't cast non-creature spells this turn.
And it's an instant.
Basically,
Yeah,
so basically that's saying, if you ping a player, they can only play creatures, right?
For the
That's
rest
correct.
of the turn, correct.
Yeah. So any creatures it hits become tapped. Any players hits can't cast anything but creatures on the turn. And you can say you pay 6 total mana into this. 2 for the red and the white, then 4 for X. You'll get to deal 4 however you want. So like you can go 4 to the head, you can go 2 to your opponent and 2 to a creature. You can deal 1 to 4 creatures. You can split any way you want.
Sure.
This is not a counter spell. If you do it in response to them trying to cast a spell, they already did it. It's already on the stack. You can't use it to stop them from taking an action that's already happening.
Yeah,
So-
that requires a counter spell.
Yeah, regarding the instant spell speed,
Yep.
could you play this basically at the start of your opponent's turn?
Yeah, you can play it like before they draw for turn. You can play it.
In that case, I have to assume this card is like nuts. Because I don't really give that much of a shit about the damage it does. I just care about
right?
Yeah, the lockdown. Stopping... I mean, it forces my opponent to keep their creatures tapped. Like, any creatures that block are gonna stay tapped, and I can prevent them from playing anything that's not a creature. Yeah, this card seems incredible.
So yeah, you like that was very much the consensus when this was
That's what
spoiled,
everyone
when the set
thought.
came out.
Yeah, when this
And
was
this card
releasing, everyone was like,
does-
"This card's gonna be format warping. This is gonna ruin the fucking game of Magic for the next 2 years. It's just gonna be nothing but white red all day. What were they thinking?" And
Nobody played this.
it ended up
Fair
being
enough.
booty. Yeah, it ended up
So,
just not getting enough done. It was like, for how much it cost as a finisher, it often just didn't win you the game on the spot
Yeah.
when you kind of
So-
needed it to.
Yeah, this card ran into a lot of different problems that made it just not work. Like, it reads incredible. It reads like
Yeah.
it's just infinite. A couple of its problems. One is like a little bit to its expense for what you're trying to do, and part of it is the split of what it does. If you want a spell that makes your opponent not cast non-creatures, if you're doing that at the beginning of your opponent's turn and they draw, you're not doing that to like prevent them from counterspelling you. You're doing that to just kind of disrupt them. You can't really. It's quite expensive for doing that. If you want to make your opponent not cast spells like that, you can get it for a much cheaper cost.
And
Okay.
the only thing that really stops too is sorcery speed, which is like the
And they
slow
can-
spells, because they can just wait for your turn to cast their instance, and they can still cast their creatures, and they can still play their lands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So it doesn't stop like at the point where you would want it to. Like if you wanted to stop your opponent casting spells, you probably want that like while you're going to be casting another spell, so they can't like kill your thing or counter your thing. But if you spend everything into Aurelius Fury, well, it doesn't really work.
Also,
and the cost on this is relatively high, just for like if I want to deal with creatures on the board. This is
Okay.
yeah,
you know, if I want to deal with creatures on the board, there are both A, cheaper ways than doing it, and B, more, even on like just dealing damage, you're going to have more effective things. It looks like a card that would be stronger than the sum of its parts, but it doesn't come together, sadly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's too expensive, and its pieces don't interact. in
kind of ends
powerful
up
ways.
being like modular in a weak way, where none of the stuff is like really good on it. Yeah, and like examples like Wrath of God. The thing is, this exists in just white and costs 4 and is just GGs to creatures, which is like so efficient compared to say hanging up like 7 mana on your opponent's turn, tapping down 2 of their creatures and keeping them from playing a sorcery, and then it's your turn and you're like, okay, well the creatures are still here.
Yeah. But so that card was very much on the like, oh wow, this is on spoiler season, was really hyped, fell off a hole. Anyway, here's a Rhino.
Okay, so I do know for a fact I've heard of this card, which could. And that's the thing, I don't remember what I've heard.
Of my friend Steve Rhino.
Steve.
So that could lead me towards one of two ways.
Yeah, figure it out. Yeah, just pretend you don't know and read the card.
Trample and siege value, battlefield each opponent loses. So I mean that first off, it just resets you basically. It just, or no, each opponent. Never mind.
Yeah, so,
I was read that wrong. Yeah.
So like if you're just like one opponent, you're draining 3 from them. You gain 3.
Yeah. So like if you played this on turn 4 and no one had taken damage, you would go to 23. Your opponent would go to 17.
And it has trample. It's a 4 cost in 3 colors. I guess since it kind of was relevant to something else to the. Already forgot the name of the card.
The Savage Knuckleblade.
Yeah.
Yep.
How relevant were these? Was this faction? I guess.
So this is the same set as Savage Knuckleblade. Is probably the.
So like it was a set where 3 colors in general were being pushed a little more aggressively. So it was more playable than average. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just based on what I'm reading, I would say this card was pretty good. However, knowing that I have definitely heard about this card before, I'm gonna say it's busto.
So there were websites that were
I'm gonna post this link for a video from Ristic Studies called The Menace, the story of Siege Rhino.
Yeah, so there was a website that was like how long till siegerhinoband.com or something that was literally just a countdown until the second that shit rotated out of standard.
Yeah, it was like, so Siege Rhino was on the opposite side of Savage Knuckleblade, same set as Savage Knuckleblade, wildly powerful, wildly played.
Everyone saw Savage Knuckleblade and was like, that thing's crazy. It's so flexible. It's got modularity. It takes advantage of all the colors it's in. It's got all sorts of stuff. And Siege Rhino, they're like 4 or 5 for 4. It drains. Who gives a shit? And then this motherfucker. Turns out 5 toughness, 5 butt is like a lot. That's like hard to deal with.
One of the fun things about Siege Rhino is that Siege Rhino is very powerful, played in a lot of decks, and you would get into games where your opponent plays a Siege Rhino, then I play a Siege Rhino. So we both drain 3 life from each other, and also the Siege Rhinos can't beat each other in combat.
They can't kill each other.
They can't. So like, you lived in a world where like,
and literally whoever swung first lost, because you would swing, they would block yours, nothing would happen, and then they'd swing back and you couldn't block. So,
or you'd have like whoever had the trick that allowed you to win the Rhino to Rhino communication. Yes.
Yeah. So like there was a bit of a mind game that was pretty funny of like swinging into your opponent's Siege Rhino with like 2 cards in hand and just staring them in the face and being like,
Because like Minimap brings up the best thing about this card. What's the best way to counter a Siege Rhino? And the answer
Siege
is
Rhino.
My own Siege Rhino. I get my 3 life back, and so
and any kind of extra damage effects too are really strong. Any pump effects. So like if you can give your Siege Rhino +1/+1 at instant speed, you swing your Siege Rhino in, they go, sure, whatever, man, you're bluffing, block it, and then you're like, okay, I give it +1/+1, and then your Siege Rhino lives and theirs dies, and then they like scoop up their field and they're like, well, fuck me, I guess.
Also, on a one more point of comparison to the Knuckle Blade, this one does have trample, which means that any damage it deals goes over the line.
Can't just 1-1 it.
Can't jump block it.
The color combination, as you asked and got kind of a non-answer.
I evaded a little.
for good reason, because to say, oh yeah, Abzan was quite good.
Abzan's fucked in this format, yeah.
Cool.
Abzan was quite good. This color combination had a lot of good support. Its cards were.
This is kind of why.
Yeah. So, white had a lot of ways to make use of the creature. Green had a lot of ways to make sure that you could win the fight between them.
And could get the mana to play it quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Black usually meant you had access to some form of removal, or on top of being able to +1/+1 your Rhino, you could also -1/-1 your opponent's Rhino. And that also would make their Rhino a 3/4 that would die. Yeah.
So yeah, the Rhino has a lot of good stories to it. The 36 Rhino deck was quite real. Where you just played this and cloned it.
Yep. White also
I say quite real. I say quite real in that a funny joke, whereas Siege Rhino was like tournament terror.
White also had access to what we call flicker effects, which are where you make a card leave the battlefield, basically banish it temporarily, and then put it back on the battlefield, which you might be like, well, what's the fucking point of just instantly making a card disappear and come back? And the thing is, it does its enter the battlefield effect again.
Yeah.
So if you can like have something like that, White had some creatures, I believe, that were just like a 2/2 for 4 or something that would be like, when it enters, flicker another creature or something like that.
Way better than a 2/2 for 4 in this format. You had Resto Angel in this world.
Dude, Resto! Oh, that's so funny. I didn't think you would fucking Resto. Oh, man. Yeah, you had a 3/4 flash flying for 4. Whoops. Oh, was Resto really in this form? See, that's why I only played limited, bro. This shit was crazy.
like in the era of it, because Khans of Tarkir. So Khans of Tarkir as a set, it comes around. Let me pull up the around, because Khans of Tarkir block is a little funky as far as its.
They were trying to like change how sets worked, and they were like figuring out abandoning core sets at the time and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but this set is not the same standard. Like this is in standard with Theros, which has its own set of blinking effects. But even in other formats and fun things to do, like Resto is the one that was like doing some wild nonsense.
So to answer a couple chat questions, first of all, this is anti-removal, I presume. That's a great question. Flash? What does Flash do? That's a great question. So Flash means you can cast this at instant speed, even though it is not an instant card. Because there are some cards in Magic that care about whether a card is an instant or sorcery or not, and they don't want it to be legal for that. Because there's some cards that are like, yeah, you can just pull an instant or sorcery from your graveyard and play it this turn. And that would be cracked with creatures with Flash. So they're like, okay, no, this is a creature you can cast whenever, but it still is a creature, and that's what Flash is. And to answer the question of is this anti-removal, oh hell yeah, brother, you absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone casts a spell and is like, all right, I lightning bolt that, and you go, okay, I Resto Angel, it leaves play, your lightning bolt resolves and fizzles because it's targeting nothing. Okay, it re-enters play. Yeah, you can do that 100%.
I will note, as I said that Resto was around, it was not in standard with this, because that would have been like super notable, but this card, with any enters the battlefield effect, you had to consider it, and in you can have a lot of fun even in some older formats with Resto and Siege Rhino. Does a lot of good stuff there. So
and
speaking of that
effects that hit your opponent for damage when they enter the battlefield, it's Vexing Devil. Here he is. It's Vexing Devil. That's right, chat.
Howdy.
When Vexing Devil enters the battlefield, any opponent may have it deal 4 damage to him or her. If player does, sacrifice Vexing Devil. And it's a 1 mana 4/3, huh?
Yeah.
That is correct.
So obviously the stats on this are insane.
Yeah, 4/3 for 1. That's ludicrous.
Just take the 4 damage. And then it goes away and your opponent spent their mana on their first turn to do nothing. This card's ass.
Nice call.
Good call. Yeah,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
one
good
gets
call.
fought over a lot because there's a little bit of context you're missing, which is red is generally the aggro burn color and like is often willing to spend 1 mana to just do lightning bolt at their opponent's face to finish a game, like stuff like that. So a lot of players saw this and are like, oh hell yeah, you just pay 1 and like worst comes worst, you get like most of a lava axe for 1. Like that's insane. But yeah, Slyo.
Yeah, so the problem with this card is that you're handing the choice over to your opponent, and they're going to take whatever's the one they care about least. If it's early, as you said, who cares? Take 4.
Go
16,
from 20 to
you
16.
done?
Who gives a shit?
Or
Yeah.
if it's like turn 3, oh, a 3/4. I'll let it stay. Play my kill spell. Okay, let's
Yeah.
move on. Like this card works only really on turn 1, and even then only as like maybe a burn spell if your opponent doesn't have a way to remove it or be able to fight against it. So
And like often it underperforms as a burn spell because you'd rather have like a 1-drop creature that gets to hit 2 or 3 times and probably builds up to more than 4 damage total.
Yeah. So because you can't, like, you don't get to choose, your opponent does, under a lot of circumstances, unless the choice is something that's like unreasonable, you don't want to be handing that off to your opponent. There are cards that do that are playable, but it's few and far between.
It reminds me. There's a card in Yu-Gi-Oh! That had like a choice like this and it was busted. I can't remember the name of it.
Ooh.
Was it just a painful choice?
But yeah, you got it. So like in general,
Yeah.
it's just a case of like giving your opponent
Painful-
choices is
Painful
horrible.
Choice is a card in Yu-Gi-Oh, but the choice in Painful Choice is like, please choose one of these 5 cards to go to my hand and the other 4 go to my grave. I secretly picked 5 cards I want in my grave.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different card, but I can't remember.
So,
the name of it. Anyway,
back on Vexing Devil, one thing I'd like to note for folks in the chat, people are saying that this card is busted against non-binary folks because it says he or she on it.
Yeah.
The current wording and the errata on the card does say them.
Oh, did they errata that? Good, good.
That is how current Magic cards are printed. Is they do not put
Sick.
he or she on there as the current vocabulary goes on Magic
Yeah.
cards. So there you go.
Good to hear it. Yeah, so Co-Buddy, this is a card I had back in the day. This is an old one. Fact or fiction? 3 generic, 1 blue, instant speed, and I'll let you read it from here.
reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and opponent separates those cards into 2 piles. Put 1 pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Do you see the cards in the piles?
Reveal.
Yes.
Reveal means
Yeah,
fully you flip them over and put them on the table, and you slide them across to your opponent and go,
Okay,
here's
okay.
5 cards. Correct.
And then they give you back 2 face-up.
2 face-up piles. Yep.
2 face-up piles.
Sure, yeah, okay. 4 mana. And it being the top 5 is a bit iffy. Instead of like I was just talking about with Painful Choice, where you search your deck and give your opponent the choice. It seems playable, but not much more than that, is what I would say.
So
I'm gonna paint you a
one
picture.
thing I'd
Wait,
like
wait.
to-
Let me. Can I paint
Yeah,
a picture?
yeah. Go for it.
All right,
yeah, I
go.
know
Yeah,
what you
hit me,
want.
Ty.
So you're playing against me. I'm playing a blue deck. Blue is famous for being able to hold up counter spells and being able to say no when you try to cast something scary. So let's say it's like turn 5 or 6. I have 4 mana up. It's your turn. You have to sit there and wait because you know if you play your like bomb thing this turn, there's a non-zero chance I just go no and counter spell it, and then you basically have lost the game. So, respectfully, you wait for the turn because you want to wait for me to tap down a little bit more so I don't have the, require the stuff available to counter you. So, you end your turn. I go, okay, in response to end of your turn, I cast Fact or Fiction. You go, God fucking damn it. I pull the 5 cards off the top of my deck. I slide them across to you. You now have to give me 2 piles. So, let's say you give me like 3 cards that are, you know, iffy for me, or like 2 that are incredible for me and 3 that are iffy for me. Okay, I'll just take the 2 that are incredible for me. Let's say you give me like 2 that are okay and 3, you know, like basically no matter how you split it, the end decision is actually mine, which means it's crazy.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
the other ones go in your graveyard.
Yeah, the bit I'd like to note is that you were comparing this to Painful Choice, and if I were to actually say the most powerful card in Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game, it's not Pot of Greed, it's not Graceful Charity. Painful Choice is the most powerful card in Yu-Gi-Oh! By like 2,000 miles. Fact or Fiction is like, you know, it gives your opponent the choice, but it's almost a fake choice because you get to choose which one you want.
Yeah, nah.
The one of the biggest bits of power on this is that you're always minimum guaranteed 3 cards. The piles have to be split 2 and 3. If they're 3 bad cards, I don't want
That's
them.
true. It is effectively a free draw 3. Yeah.
And also there's a lot of cards that you're okay with being in your graveyard or your hand. So your opponent kind of is stuck with a damned if you do, damned if you don't, as far as do I put it in the graveyard or do I force it into their hand? It's like there's no good choice.
That's definitely something I've been undervaluing since this entire stream, is I always forget there's a non-insignificant amount of graveyard
like
interaction.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Graveyard interactors,
Even without the graveyard interaction, like say I Fact or Fiction and I reveal 4 lands and the card that kills you. There's no way for you to stop me from picking the card that kills you.
Yeah, because you split it 4-1. Great. I take the card that kills you. You split it 1 land, the card that kills you in 3 lands. Great. I'll take the card that kills you. I split it 5-0. Great. I'll take 4 lands and the card that kills you.
When we did our cube draft a few weeks back, there was a point in the games where we had 3 games going simultaneously on the table. And in our game over on the left, Fact or Fiction gets cast, and all of a sudden, 4 hands fly over onto the Fact or Fiction and start like poking at it. Fact or Fiction gets cast, everyone like stops, and it's like,
we were all in separate Discord calls, but you could see our little hands on Tabletop Simulator because like literally it like had a little pop-up that was explaining Fact or Fiction resolving in like the universal chat. So like you just see all of us pop over and be like, oh fuck, Fact or Fiction time, baby. Largely because like Kavanaugh and Slyo playing Fact or Fiction, whoever's playing that's 2 of the best blue players I've ever met in my life, and they're about to have a Fact or Fiction off. Like, oh yeah, buddy, I'm seeing how these piles are getting split and chosen. Yeah, I'm gonna learn something here.
That's what I get for not watching that stream.
There's also some absolutely ridiculous plays that can happen where you'll have part of a game plan that relies on your opponent having a lot of cards in their hand to kill them, and you can bluff them by splitting it 0-5. And I have seen this work where someone goes, all right, 0-5, and they just have to go, all right, I take the 0 and then put the other 5. They're like, actually, I realize the only way I lose this game is by having 5 additional cards in my hand.
Yeah, but yeah, the Fact or Fiction, as I was mentioning with Vexing Devil, usually giving your opponent the choice is quite bad. But when the choice is kind of fake,
yeah.
This was not just tournament staple, but like,
this is like vintage playable still. Yeah,
you got called EOT FOF. You know, you lose.
I'm sorry, I just kind of laughed at the name Doom Whisperer.
Doom Whisperer.
Doom Whisperer, the man with so many limbs.
Got hands.
Find my black 6/6 flying trapple. Pay 2 life, surveil 2. Look up to any of them in graveyard and the rest on top of your library in any order. Okay.
Good thing to know. So we've been talking about 1v1 Magic the Gathering. You have 20 life to start. In the 4-player format Commander, you do have 40 life to start, for what it's worth.
Oh, sure.
Yep. This is the first time where I think we've had like a repeatable life effect where that distinction would be super notable and worth mentioning.
Sure. And I'm just taking a guess because off of the general theme of each fucking color, I have to assume black probably has like the most discard interaction, like, in Magic.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're gonna choose a color, black is the one that's gonna have the highest level of.
They have the most cards banned with the word graveyard in them, for sure. They've got shit
Fair
like
enough.
Yawgmoth's Will, which is like, Yawgmoth's Will is one of the funniest cards in Magic history because it's basically just turn your graveyard into your hand for a turn, which seems okay until you realize there's cards like Dark Ritual, which let you pay 1 mana to make 3 mana that you can just replay from your graveyard with Yawgmoth's Will. So you play Yawgmoth's Will, crack multiple rituals, and then just play an entire game of Magic the Gathering again that term, and then you just shake your opponent's hand and say, they're probably gonna ban this soon.
As for Doom Whisperer here, I can't see how this isn't good. Like, it's got pretty solid stats, it's got flying, it's got trample, and sure, you pay 2 life, but life is, if I've learned anything from card games, life is a resource, and the only thing that matters is the last one. So being able to pay 2 life to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and either pitch them if they're bad or interact with the graveyard in any way, or there's a bomb that you can draw guaranteed now. Yeah, I can't see how this card isn't good.
Yeah, so that's again what everyone really thought. Like, there was so
God
much.
damn it!
Yeah, there was so much concern of like, people were talking. It was funny that the card was named Doom Whisperer because people were legitimately like whispering doom sayings to each other that like this card was going to be the death of Commander. Because yeah, you put it on the field and you just shuffle through the top 60 cards of your deck to find whatever you need. Like, how can it not be crazy? But Slyo?
This card ended up being like a fringe playable in constructed standard, like at best. A 5-drop at the especially at the time that this was printed, when it comes into play is a body that doesn't do something when you play it. You're asking to just get hit by a removal spell, and then cool. Yes, you can pay life to stack the top of your deck, hit some graveyard order, but this is just too expensive for a body that's coming down and going, all right, gonna attack with my 6/6, when a lot of the cards you're playing at 5 mana are cards that are either like game-ending level threats or like some sort of engine.
Or like this feels enter the battlefield and like exile another target or something. Like, they answer a problem and also are a body, right?
Yeah. Like, obviously, you look at a mythic rare in a draft is always going to be a huge thing. That goes.
Mythic
but, like,
rares are literally either impossible build arounds or impossible to defeat bombs in draft, and that's always that's what they do.
There were a couple worlds where this lived in, but it just wasn't like it's a creature with stats, and it's. You can't be that if you're trying to play at a constructed level.
And this is like, the thing too is like, this is another one where, depending on where in Magic's timeline it was, it could have been much better. If this was like,
oh, absolutely.
If this was like a first decade creature in black, it would be the best creature in any color by like a country fucking mile, and nothing would be able to answer it. This thing would be so busted. But this came out in what, like Commander 2023 or whatever?
So this was Guilds of Ravnica, was its original printing.
Oh, it got a Commander reprint, right?
Yes, it got a reprint in the most recent, I guess maybe not most recent, Thunder Junction came out last weekend, but it had a reprint quite recently. But yeah, this thing just didn't perform.
Yeah.
It was people are saying like just it's perfectly mid, and I think that's a great way to put it.
It occasionally comes up as a pet card. The only problem is it's usually also not interesting enough to really be a pet card. It doesn't like do enough weird shit.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is the one I'm probably the most surprised about to have y'all tell me is bad, because everything on face just seems like it's a very strong card.
Yeah, again, this one scared the shit out of people. This one legitimately, like, people, here, let me show you another card. People thought it was gonna be one of these. And this one is, like, in my opinion, too obviously broken as soon as you understand, like, oh yeah, you can cheat this bastard onto the field way too fucking early. Don't you worry.
Pulling up
Grizzlebrand, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm pulling up Grizzlebrand, yeah. So Grizzlebrand, you put him on the field, and yeah, look at that ability. Compare that.
Pay 7 life, draw 7 cards. Yeah, that's okay.
Grizzlebrand, one of the strongest reanimation targets that's ever been printed. Grizzlebrand, one of the like comparator levels. Yeah, I guess that's the other reason Doom Whisperer isn't huge, is that it's, if you want a card that goes over the top, better options. If you want a card that goes below, it's too expensive for going low.
Yeah, in general, it's like it's too expensive for cheaper black decks, and then the other black decks are trying to cheat things out of the graveyard using like unfair reanimation abilities that don't care about how much it costs. So Grizzlebrand or that are the same according to the text of pull a creature from your graveyard, right?
So.
And drawing 7 cards is fucked. Drawing 7 cards is like you've won on the spot. Yeah, like Grizzlebrand. All right, handshake please is a pretty common set.
I wish that this card cost 7 black mana.
I know it's like for the balance it has to be 8, but like
I really just wish it would cost black instead of like.
Yeah.
Alright, mission briefing. Surveil 2, then choose an instant or sorcery card in graveyard. Oh, okay.
So remember when I said earlier there's like flash creatures can be played as instants, but they still count as creatures? This is the kind of card that is why that matters. Yeah.
That spell will be put into your graveyard, exile instead.
So essentially what this does is it lets you put a card off to the side, and you're allowed to cast that until the end of turn.
Okay,
and then it gets banished. It doesn't go to your grid, just to keep you from being able to like repeatedly recast
Play
it
it again, yeah, sure. Notably, obviously, you do have to pay the mana cost for the spell, right?
You do.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so you can't cheat something out, because that would, if you could, that would make this card broken. I still think it's very good, though. Like, being, like... It effectively gives you a free cast of any spell twice. And the Surveil 2 isn't, like, immediately relevant, but it's like not bad to have.
You've played
especially
Eternal,
since
so you know how effects like Scry, where it's just like you get to look at the top card and either put it. You know how that's just like an extra little +1 bonus on it to help make a card a little better. Yeah.
And I mean, you can also, if you see a card you want to play, you can pitch it with Surveil. So yeah, this card seems pretty strong.
So again, another card that really didn't perform. The amount of like what you're getting out of the 2 mana 2 recurrent and then having to play it immediately just makes this a little bit too expensive for what it does.
Fair enough.
There are ways of recurring spells that either, you know, you can grab it and put it back in your hand, or maybe get a little bit more out of that. And this one is just a little bit too...
Oh, whoops, I slipped.
Immediate. Yeah. Oh, we...
Oh, what?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You know, either you're looking... If you're going to play a card on the turn, you're recurring it, you're doing some sort of... as mentioned, Snapcaster is a card that's actually been losing weight over the last couple of years. It's not a card that appears as much as it used to, because a 2/1 body isn't even enough to match up in at least the older formats.
But yeah, so like this used to be a card that was like crazy influential. Like Snaps was known as like, this is one of the most important cards because it lets you replay one of your cards, and it lets you can play it at flash. So like if your opponent swings in, you can flash this down, block one of their creatures, and then cast a spell out of your graveyard. Like you get a pretty big play out of it, as opposed to Surveil 2, which is like, you fix your deck a little bit, but then like,
yeah, it's just that for the recursion piece, you're not getting enough like to do that on the turn. You have to have a lot of mana to be able to pull it
Yeah.
off, and all you're doing is pre-playing one card. So,
Yeah. All right, I think this will be a good one to bring up. Since you mentioned the Morphlings earlier, I figured I would bring up a Morphling variant, one of them that exists, because that is something that's really common in Magic, is if a card is very influential, either because it just is very beloved by the community because of its art, how it plays, like where it fits in the story of Magic, or because it's just very, very strong and kind of dominates a format for a while, they'll make variations on it. A, because making variations on a popular card is a good way to make more popular cards, and also just like, yeah, it's like good mechanically. People like it, and Aetherling is one of those.
yeah, Morphling was known as Superman to the point where there was an earlier card printed that was an anagram of "I am Superman" that gave Morphling's text Kamin's aura.
Morphling was 3 mana, right?
Morphling cost 5 total for a 3/3. This
It
one
was
cost
3
6
blue
total.
blue.
5, okay.
Yeah, it was 3 blue
4
blue.
and
This is
4
4 blue blue. Yeah.
So 6, exile Aetherling, return to the battlefield under its owner control at the beginning of the next step. Aetherling is unblockable this turn, and then same stuff as shit.
Yep.
My first instinct says this card is like mid to bad. It being 1 more expensive than Shapeling is a little rough, though that's not a deal breaker. But exiling it, even when you get it back at the end of your step, or at the end of your turn, it feels a lot worse than gaining Hexproof on Shapeling earlier. And granted, I'm comparing it to Shapeling a lot, but
It invites those comparisons. Of
Yeah.
note, this was printed after that change I mentioned. It can't do the weird trick. With
Sure,
its
yeah.
Also,
it's more.
Also, Magic has like over 7,000, 5,000, 7,000 cards at this point. It's got like an unbelievable number of cards.
25,000.
That's so crazy, man. So there's like no way you can reasonably make comparisons and evaluate Magic cards without using previous Magic cards, because it is too complex and layered of a system to not use some kind of reference point. You can't climb the entire mountain from the bottom every time or you'll go fucking crazy. So yeah, totally normal to like compare to a similar card. Yeah.
But yeah, so
And Aetherling is unblockable this turn. I mean, it can get you... Well, no, because if your opponent targets it, you don't get the attack off, because you'd exile it, so it doesn't even get that. Yeah, Aetherling seems mid to bad.
So this card operated as a quite strong control finisher at its time. Like this was quite a good card. One of the big things about it, compared to Morphling, is the difference between Shroud and its on the Morphling and the Exile in this one means that you could still play things like Wrath of God and then have your Aetherling still survive it.
Sure.
And such. This card was just as unkillable as Morphling, but also kills at a rate that's... The game will end very quickly here because you can make this a 8 power unblockable creature. It costs a lot more mana to do so. But you are killing your opponent in very short order with this card. The decks that played this were generally like, you're playing one or two Aetherling as like your way to kill your opponent. But this is like the card that you look at as like generic control finisher. This is quite a strong control finisher.
Yeah, I always forget that those abilities you can play multiple times, because I've been playing universes for so long and you can only play one in
unless it says tap, you can just do it. Mana.
So you can make this into an 8/1 creature. You can make this into a 0/9 or even more than 9.
Yeah.
So this operates as a card. Like in general, if the deck playing this was in a position where they felt comfortable playing this card and passing the turn, you were dead. Like it was too late. You needed to kill them before they got to that position.
Yeah,
Sure,
and
okay.
this isn't like an all-timer shows up in every format forever.
Nah.
But like when it was in format of like the more like limited formats, it was incredibly good. Yeah.
It's kind of an archetypical card where blue gets these cards that are like, here's the card you play to end the game, and notable one of those.
All right, here's one that I wanted to bring up that I think is kind of fun. This is like a little short side story. We're gonna talk about Infect for a second.
Creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters.
So a couple things that require an explanation here. Poison counters are an alternate win condition, where if your opponent takes 10 poison counters, they die.
So this lets you kill your opponent in less than 20, first of all. And also if your opponent is playing any form of life gain, poison counters fully circumvent that. Because as soon as the way it works is if you have 10 poison counters as a game state condition, you lose. And as far as I know, that is the most unreactable instant thing that exists in Magic.
Yeah, there are very, very few ways to remove poison counters or anything like that. And then the -1/-1 counter damage is kind of like it sticks on creatures. Like if this hits a creature, like
Right, yeah, it doesn't,
Because yeah, normally like if a Siege Rhino blocks a Siege Rhino, it doesn't keep being like a 4/5. It just goes back to
Yeah,
or
the-
it doesn't go to
the-
be a 4/1. It goes back
it
to being a
heals
4/5 at the end
damage.
of turn. Yeah.
so yeah, that's the quick primer on Infect.
yeah. So, I'm just thinking back to the Universus stream where Slyo said alt win cons are bullshit.
If they're ever good, they're bullshit.
Damage would be dealt to Phyrexian Hydra. Prevent that damage.
Yeah, so this one effectively doesn't heal any damage.
Yeah, it poisons your opponent's monsters and poisons itself. That's the thing that's killing it for me a little bit, I think. Cause if you block this like with a 4-power creature or whatever, it's all of a sudden it's only a 3/3. And that suddenly becomes a whole lot worse.
It does kill
than
their creature, for what it's worth.
It does, yeah. But it doesn't. It doesn't have
that's
like.
how that works.
Yeah, it doesn't have like trample or anything. I mean, yeah, it'd probably be pretty strong if it had like trample, because I'd be able to get over stuff.
Get the poison in, yeah.
I don't see how this thing doesn't get chump blocked into death.
Yeah, so you're right. This card is like
That's
pretty
exactly the problem with this card.
Yeah, that is the number one problem. Is your opponent just puts anything in the way and it cannot get through, and it is a huge
And it
roadblock
just
for
loses, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
This thing is saying, I'm a huge threat, please don't get hit.
Sorry, my JPEG is really dog shit here. So I really had to
Hey
dig,
Ty, your elf is sick.
had to dig deep for the elf. As,
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of high-res images of this bad boy.
Do I look like I know what an infect is?
Well, anyway, this is fucking Glistener Elf. This shit, oh no, this shit costs 1 green. It's got Infect, and it's a 1/1, and that's it, baby. What do you think, buddy?
I mean, it's vastly better than the card you just showed me. Because
But
this one, I mean, it's a 1/1, but it's a 1/1 that permanently reduces a creature's stats. I don't think it's like Busto, but I think it's good.
okay, you're on the right track. This is Busto though. This card is
Okay.
nuts. So it turns out having something so cheap with Infect on it, there's a lot of ways that you can like get this bad boy over the line. Like, essentially, you use this as
Sure,
a 1
yeah.
mana thing that just is +1/+1 infect that can hold a piece of equipment or can get hit by a pump spell or so on and so forth. Because if you pump it, if you like give this thing +4/+4 until end of turn, congratulations, you've now done 5 poison damage to your opponent if they let it through, right?
Yeah, you only need 10 counters to kill them, so this effectively makes, much like when we were looking at Universes cards, like pump effects are a pretty active thing you can have, especially in green in Magic, and so pump effects on this card work double. It being cheap means that it's more likely to get through.
Also, additional bonus, it is an elf, which is very relevant in Magic. There are a lot of tribals in Magic, so like groups like human warrior, elf, vampire has been picking up a lot recently. Pirate has been picking up things like that. Elf is probably the single most relevant archetype in all of Magic.
Okay.
Yeah.
This one, very tiny, very effective.
Yeah. Just gets the
Yeah,
job done.
Yeah, I knew it seemed strong just from a first glance, but
Yep.
All right. Now here's Blightsteel Colossus. Here's the biggest boy. You read that right. It costs 12.
yeah, the fact that it costs 12 makes
fucking
me
mana.
makes me instantly think this card is dog shit.
And yeah,
'Cause-
artifact, creature, golem, trample, infect, indestructible. And if it would go
to
to
the graveyard,
it just gets
Yes.
put back in your deck.
I could probably hazard a guess, but what does indestructible do?
cannot be destroyed by destroy effects or lethal damage.
Word,
So,
okay, yeah.
so if you do somehow deal 11 damage to this, it's still alive.
It's still alive.
Or if you
and
target with a spell that says like destroy target creature, it just goes, I don't care. However, if someone does like exile all creatures or something, that will still get this.
Yeah.
But that is
Now,
very
did you
rare.
say
It is a pain in the
Okay.
ass to get rid of indestructible creatures, yeah.
12 mana though?
12 fucking mana.
I guess the main question would just be, how easy is this to cheat it into play? Because if you can't cheat it into play, I can't see this being good at all. If you can, then it's probably pretty good.
So how do you feel about it overall? Staple, sinker, somewhere in between.
Admittedly, it is a little pretty KO I just said, but I'm gonna say it's awful.
So you're extremely on the right track. Wow, this is 12 mana. Wow, when do I cast this? Wow, what am I doing? I'm cheating this in the play. I'm cheating this in the play. I'm killing you because I'm cheating this in the play.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
thing is,
yeah.
11 infect is that's
That
one
wins the
turn
game.
kill.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
an instant kill. Yeah, so like if you can sneak this bad boy on the board and get it across the line in any way, shape, or form, you have finished the game of Magic the Gathering, and that is
Yeah.
So yeah,
unbelievable.
you are correct in your assessment of this depends on the world and how much you can cheat it into play because I don't want to pay 12 mana. And
Yeah, you never play 12 mana for this thing.
if you're paying 12 mana, it's because you have infinite, right? Like,
and
Yeah.
The other thing here too is like they put a restriction on it to make sure you couldn't like pull it out of your graveyard really easily. So like explicitly, if it does go in your graveyard, no, it doesn't. It goes back in your deck. Don't you dare. Don't try, because this thing is such a problem when it comes down. And indestructible is a nightmare. Like almost all the things that deal with indestructible are either like a sacrifice where your opponent gets to pick. So if you have anything else they can get rid of before Blightsteel, they will, and then like board wipes.
I need to correct some people in chat that they're saying unless you have instant speed reanimation. No, this card is not. This card has a replacement effect, not a triggered effect.
Yep.
This card says if, therefore, it is a replacement on going to the graveyard. It never will enter the graveyard. It is not. So there's no instant speed effect that will recur from the graveyard
Because it doesn't go to the graveyard. Yeah.
Both Darksteel and Blightsteel have this text specifically to avoid instant speed reanimation.
Yep.
But that said, artifacts are actually the big thing here that makes it so you can, like, cheating an artifact into play, a lot of fun ways to do that. But I think you were right on this in the sense that, like, it depends on if your deck can sneak it into play. If you've got a way to be like, yo, slam this. Because if you can, they die.
There's also, and I should just show you this card because I think it's pretty relevant. Let me just pull up. Oh wow, that's a really nice art for show and tell. I haven't seen that one. Where did that save? There it is. So yeah, this is show and tell. Show and tell is an unbelievably strong card because you play it from your hand knowing your opponent probably has something pretty whatever in their hand and you have a Blightsteel Colossus. So you get a Blightsteel Colossus for 3 and they get, I don't know, like a 2/2, like a guy.
Hope your opponent isn't also just like my own. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I think you're basically right on it.
And yeah, Infect is an interesting one too, where the lower cost ones ended up being way more relevant than the high cost ones, with like the one exception basically of Blightsteel, because A, it's an artifact, and B, it is so much of a threat that is so hard to answer. It's unbelievable. All right, let me go ahead and pull up our next one here. We're getting into a new, so we went from Infect, which is like kind of an alternate win con in a way, and we're going to some other alternate win cons because I think these are fun and also kind of tricky to evaluate. I think they're tougher than average.
If Approach of the Second Sun was first off 7 mana, if Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your stand and you cast another spell named Approach of the Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner library 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life.
Yeah, so the first time you cast this, put it at 7th from the top. The second time you cast Approach, you win.
Yeah, I'm assuming that if it gets countered spelled, it doesn't count. It doesn't go off.
If you counterspell it the second time, yes. In the sense that, like, if you counterspell, it'll stop it from going off. But if you counterspell the first one and they play another one, you did cast the first one.
So you have to counter the second specifically. Yeah.
Sure.
But you're right. Like, if you counter it, it won't win the game. So.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm thinking with this. Like, when you see the first one, just hold the counterspell. Like, if they're building, I mean, this feels like an extreme build around card.
And for what it's worth, counterspells are like pretty restricted, all told. Like, only one color really gets access to just straight up and down counterspells. Like, that's basically a blue thing. Everyone else, they'll have some here or there, but they'll be like really, really conditional, or there'll be things like redirect as opposed to a pure counter.
Sure.
Oh, the 7 life is to help with survivability, so that if you're at 3 life and you play it, you go to 10, so there's any chance you survive for like another turn or 2.
I don't know, I think I could see this being a viable win con in certain situations, but I think most of them it's bad.
Yeah, I'd say that's right. I'd say that's basically dead on. Like,
so the comparable card to this that we've seen is Aetherling. This is much like Aetherling, your control finisher. You play this, and you like the game will. You play Aetherling, the game's gonna end in a couple turns. You're going to be
it's
like,
inevitability.
But same with Approach of the Second Sun. You cast Approach of the Second Sun. You've now said, all right, the game now has an end state. It's going to end in this time, and I'm only playing this because I feel comfortable at where we're at.
Yeah, that I can hold the fort down. And this also ended up, it saw play in some formats. I want to say Arena. This was like part of a really strong deck in Arena for a while.
So there was a time where they printed standard pre-con decks for a couple of years, and this was one of blue-white control with this as its win con. Was one of the like blue-white like one of the like kind of setups that you had for one of them. So this was very much like a control finisher. You could set up weird combos for it. Also, you don't have to play the one that you put back on 7th. You can just play it.
You can just draw two.
True.
And just play them one after another. So like, yeah, I think you got it. Where like it's playable in certain specific formats, and it can be quite strong in those, but it's not like a in every format card for sure. All right. And now, one that I wanted to put in just because I want to make sure we mention at least one Secret Lair card, because I love the art on these. There's a whole set called Secret Lair. Let me see if I can just pull up the full SLV list and link it in chat so people can look through these.
These are types of cards that they've been doing for a few years now, where they sell alternate art versions of cards as like kind of like singles that you're able to buy that are out for a limited time. And they all get put under this little Secret Lair number.
And there's a ton of super cool ones. I linked it in chat, and I'll actually just link it in our group chat. So if you want to like look at some cool art sometime, there you go.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are quite poor. Some of them are Jeff Goldblum as the character in Jurassic Park. Some of them are fucking Post Malone as a wizard. So, whatever. Who gives a shit? There's a mountain goat from the band The Mountain Goats. And it is horrible, but it's so funny. One sec, let me put this shit on screen. I love this
pull up
guy.
that mountain goat.
Steve or Brian. There you go. Enjoy a nice mountain goat. It's got mountain walk.
Steve or Brian.
Boy. Or Brian. Yeah, they'll just put anything in a Secret Lair these days, I tell you. All right, so back to Thassa's Oracle. I'll let you read through that.
Look at the top X cards of your deck, where X is your devotion to blue. I'm assuming devotion to blue just means how many blue lands you have in play.
Okay,
it counts the blue pips on cards you control.
Oh,
So this card has 2 pips. It'll count those plus like whatever others you control.
So if you had like 3 of these in play, your devotion to blue would be 6.
I'm assuming her pips count towards it.
Correct.
When you play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thassa's or it counts all cards, including.
Yeah. So bare minimum, it's 2.
Yep.
Put up to 1 of them on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. X is greater than equal. Okay. I'm beginning to see the theme, I think.
That it's alternate win cons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
X is greater than.
God, this art's good.
Yeah, this Thassa art is so good. I'm like struggling with the idea of just like, what if I just did a stream where we just like looked at all the Secret Lair drop art and just like rated it on a scale from S to B because it's all good.
Magic deck size is 40 cards, right?
60
it
is
is
generic.
60,
in standard.
okay.
So it's 60 in standard, 40 in limited, so like draft format or sealed format, which is where you get handed a bunch of cards and just told build something out of these. And then 100 in Commander, the 4-player format.
Okay, yeah.
Again, the joys of multiple formats.
Yeah, the 60 is the base for structured formats. The reason we have to say that is because Commander EDH has become one of the de facto formats over the last like decade.
I would say it's like it might be the most popular format.
Yeah,
I just wanted to show you one of my favorite pieces of Secret Lair art. I fucking love the Ulvenwald tracker art.
So I've only purchased like a couple Secret Lairs. One of them was a Junji Ito Secret Lair that had a bunch of pieces of Junji Ito art like made for the cards, and the other one was Yoji Shinkawa, the Metal Gear artist. Like if you're thinking of like the super like incredible like art that's on a lot of the like Metal Gear Solid 2, Solid 3, those arts. They have these artist series ones where it's like they just give an artist like, hey, pick some cards and draw them. Do you want to see
my favorite Felidar Sovereign? Felidar Sovereign's fun.
Yeah!
Oh, a funny little cat. It was like a big ass lion in the original. Oh, I love it. Big baby.
Okay.
So, Thassa's Oracle.
Yeah, I would love, yeah, if you could pull the card back up again.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
I
Sorry,
appreciate looking at the cat.
1 sec, I'm looking for...
I love to look at the cat.
Where did I put that? There we go. Thank you for the sub, gifting a sub to Imperial Kitty. I think the reason, Mr. Rose.
Blue. So basically, you definitely would only want to play this late game, obviously, is the main.
Yep.
If you play this like on turn 2, you're going to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one on top, the rest on bottom. That's what the card will do on
Yeah, and I'm assuming by that wording, King of the Cats. I'm assuming by that wording, the devotion doesn't count the pips on lands, if lands even have
lands
pips.
Don't have pips. Yeah, lands don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's only on cards that have it in the top right corner.
So it would be creatures, enchantments, and all that junk.
Yep. Does it count with hybrid? It works the way you want with hybrid. We haven't had any hybrid cards, but there are cards that have like blue/black. Those count as both.
Blue is a control color, usually, right?
Yeah. They're the ones who have Ancestral Recall, for example. Like, being able to draw cards is one of their iconic abilities. And, thanks for gifting a sub to Thassa's Oracle, even though not welcome in his house. All right, what do you think, buddy?
I mean, I think it's probably a top end for like a blue control deck. Though I don't think this is one you like rely on consistently, if that makes sense. So I think it.
So
Thassa's Oracle was a mistake. Is how I feel about this card.
For this card, if we take a look at the card, okay, look at the top next to your deck.
Yeah.
If you have that many or fewer cards in there, you win. What if that number's 0? You win. You win in all cases if you have no deck.
Yeah.
And so, this isn't like a control finisher or anything like that. This is a really, really annoying combo piece. You have some way of just going, I'm going to destroy my own deck. I'm going to find some way to destroy my own deck.
Self-mill. Yeah, okay.
Yes. You self-mill yourself as though you're Endeavor and in the universe's stuff. And then you just go, cool. I have no deck left. I will play this and win the game.
My opponent is tapped out. I play two blue mana, and the game is now mine. And this is a really common enabler for this. Is Demonic Consultation, which. So I'll read it real quick. This is 1 black mana, incredibly cheap, instant. You can cast it whenever. Name a card, remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal the named card. put that card into your hand and remove all other cards revealed this way from the game. So in Magic the Gathering, a thing you can do is you can play Demonic Consultation and name Tom Hardy's butthole, which is not a card.
I
in
would
your
like
deck.
a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card, please.
One Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card. That would be the most base call, I think. And yeah, you just put your entire deck in the graveyard and go, damn, failed to find. That's crazy. And then you just play Thassa's Oracle and win.
Okay, yeah.
And like, it's not, there are a number of ways you could just get to know deck. One of the funnier bits is when we were looking at Doom Whisper before. Doom Whisper even is a way you could set that up if you have the life. Just dump your entire deck into the grave. So yeah, you just go ahead and like Thassa's Oracle. The problem with the card is that it kind of unresponsively wins you the game on the spot. There's a lot of combo decks that just do that. Use that. So
and the thing that makes Thassa's Oracle explicitly more belligerent than other similar cards is Thassa's Oracle happens when you play Thassa's Oracle. A lot of other cards that are similar to this wait until the beginning of your next turn, so your opponent has more of a chance to interact with it or destroy it or whatever. Like there's a card that's like Lab Maniac, I think, which is if you go to draw.
Lab Maniac is when you would go to draw, you win. Or like we had the cat up earlier.
Fellow Sovereign. Yeah, let me put it back up.
If you pull up the funny cat. The funny cat also has an alternate win condition of being at 40 or more life, but it is at the beginning of your upkeep, which is beginning of your turn. So you have to like play Feldar Sovereign and then have it survive. So
and
like
have
your
40
opponent gets
life.
through.
Yeah.
Which, depending on what format you're playing, maybe that's like brutal.
What? There's a format called Commander where you start with 40 life? Yeah,
But yeah, so a lot of the alt-win cons have like some respondability to them. Thassa's Oracle has much less.
Much less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
All right. Alternate win con. Helix Pinnacle. This one is hilarious. I love Helix Pinnacle.
At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 100 or more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game.
And so
I mean,
it for what it's worth, it having X with no other cost means literally like any time you have mana floating around for any reason, you can just put it into Helix Pinnacle.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this card seems pretty bad, but pretty funny.
That's spot on. You're dead on this one.
Yeah,
this card's hilarious. This card's hilarious. You want to pull up the Millennium Calendar?
Yeah, I actually was thinking about using that one, so that's a good option.
It's not an alternate win con, but it's also very funny.
I mean, it's like kinda.
Yeah. So Helix Pinnacle is like, if you have infinite mana again, you win next turn. You can respond.
Sure, yeah.
But like, it's mostly a funny card. You're not playing it for. All right, here's the Millennium Calendar.
Whenever you tap one or more permanents during your untap step, put that many time counters on the Millennium Calendar, double the number of 1,000 or more, and each opponent loses 1,000 life. Again, no, this seems pretty bad, but it's again pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, 100%, 100,000%. Yeah, absolutely. Like bad but funny. There's a term for like different player types in Magic where like a spike is someone who plays like really like to win. They're super competitive. Timmy just wants to put a big creature on the board and likes the cards with the big numbers and whatever. Johnny is the more like slick, wants to make some weird kind of goof ass combo work in some way. And this is very much like that kind of card.
Yeah.
This is like, I want to get this one thing to work one time at Friday Night Magic and then never go to Friday Night Magic again, which is like, for what it's worth, like perhaps the most Chokorojo thing I have ever fucking said in my life. Like, extremely Chokorojo coded.
Yeah, this card toes the line between the latter two because this fits the big number. Like I love big number. Give me So
I would probably try and play this card.
Here's a fun side note. Here's the card that when I played it, it made Zorak sigh the loudest. Oh wait, no, I'm not trying to save it again. Hold up, one sec. Let me fix this. Oh no. No. I need to put it on. I need to show everybody. So it's a mountain with art on it by Post Malone, and it's I love this I played this shit, and everyone was like, "Oh, damn it,
Post Malone."
The Post Malone mountain is so butt cheeks. Oh, all right. Well, here's this shit's called Grape Shot, and it is similarly kind of a win condition.
So we got Grape Shot.
Go ahead and read through.
Grape Shot deals 1 damage to target creature player Storm. When you play the spell, copy it for each spell played before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So, I learned this from one of the videos. When it's a spell, that basically means like everything, right?
Anything
like
but a
everything
land.
is considered a spell.
Basically anything but a land, yeah. Is there something other than lands that I can... Is there anything, Sly, other than that that's not a spell?
Everything else that you pay mana and you cast, it's a spell.
Okay.
For 2 mana, and...
It is sorcery speed, which means you
Sure.
have to play it during your turn and not during combat. So you have to play it like before fight time or after fight time.
When it says copy it for each spell played before it in this turn, I'm assuming you don't have to pay the mana cost again?
Yeah, it's free. So like,
It's just free, yeah.
say you play a creature, then you play a second creature, and then you play Grape Shot. You're gonna get the original Grape Shot and 2 copies.
So you get to do 1 damage, 1 damage, 1
Yeah.
damage.
The fact that you said it's also technically a win condition, an all-win condition, makes me think that this is a very strong burn card. Where, I mean, everyone here knows what burn means.
You mean, well, what do you mean by burn? Because it actually is kind of important. There are some like pretty harsh delineations in Magic. So like, what do you mean by burn? Like, you think this is like you play a creature, you hit them for 5, and this is just like part of the include. Like at the end of one of your turns, you play 3 creatures, swing in, and do this for 4 to kill them, or like how are you thinking?
Yeah, basically, like it's a like torching face, effectively. Like spells and stuff that. Yeah, spells and stuff that hit face. You play a bunch of cards, and you play this on an opponent's face, and it deals like it's a top end of your turn, basically.
Cool. So you're basically evaluating this how the Magic the Gathering design team evaluated it, which is like good. That means you're really close, right? That means like you get it. Like they wanted this to be strong, right? And they thought that's what people were gonna do with this.
Storm.
So yeah,
Storm.
So there is.
We talked very early about like Black Lotus and cards that were when we talked about Black Lotus and Lotus Petal and Lotus all the Lotus variants, and it's like this is used in a combo deck where you'd play a bunch of cards in a turn and then do something. This is the something.
This is often the something. Yeah.
This is the like I'm going to generate a bunch of mana, I'm going to do a bunch of nonsense, and then I'm going to play Grape Shot, and I'm going to count to 20, and you're going to die.
There's a very common thing where you'll be playing against your opponent and they have not done a lot for the first 2 or 3 turns of the game, and then turn 4 they play a very cheap spell and they say out loud, Storm count 1, and you go, God fucking damn it. That means they're getting ready to try and storm off, as it's known, where you like play a spell that's like super cheap, draw something, play a spell that gives you mana, play a spell that's a little more expensive but draws you 3 cards, and then use those 3 cards to get more mana to play, etc., until eventually Storm count 20, Grape Shot, 20 damage to your face.
Or like
explode instantly.
Or like I play Grape Shot for 10 and then I play Grape Shot for 11. Or this is a mechanic that like
so
Wizards keeps coming back to like the Olive at 4 a.m. for this, and it kind of every time we come back to it, it's like, it's more Storm time.
So one of the like most important people working on Magic for a long time had devised a scale of like how likely they would be to come back and use old mechanics in Magic again, because like, you know, they've been adding new mechanics for years and years and years and years, so there's a bunch of them that haven't really seen a lot of reprints, haven't seen a lot of play, that players are like, oh, we'd love to see that back again, that one is so cool. The name of this scale is the Storm scale, because Storm is the current mechanic at the top of the no list.
Funnily enough, I think Storm is currently an 8 on the Storm scale.
Oh, is it really? Did it end up falling behind? Because it used to be 10. Yeah,
it used to be, but I think there are like, look, if we want the ones that are actually at like 11, that's banding.
Some are like bands and bands with others because they're instead of being impactful and flashy and too strong and broken, they're just boring and also bad and confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Storm. Okay, no, Storm is still at a 10 on it. Okay, I had to double check on there. It's not it is not the highest because I think Bands with Others was at 11, but Storm, the scale on Storm, by the way, if you're wondering, are on this is the if we'll reprint it into standard, there are mechanics that like have like a really high value on here that they'll come back to, and even Storm they come back to it kind of regularly, but like not into standard. They figured that one out real hard.
It's just too powerful for that format. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking it could be played that way. I just wasn't sure like the viability of being able to slam that many cards in a turn.
I really thought Storm like pulled down to like a 9 or an 8 on there. What was I don't know what I was thinking of then. Anyway, but yeah, this is actually the second pass on Storm. The first time they did Storm, it was also the first time they did Storm, they had to ban a card before it was printed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mind's Desire, if I remember right, was pre-banned or pre-restricted. Like it was like very like they knew what they were doing, or they knew they messed up. Anyway, here's a cool card for winners.
Yeah, and before we do Bellwitz, there was I wanted to show you a couple of these. So Grape Shot also has some really fucking cool secret layers, because as we mentioned, it's a really common finisher for really strong decks. So it's got some really cool art, and then it's got
finisher, right? It's just spell card cast right here.
All right, I get the other one folded up. Just a second. Let me find that other print I was looking at. I was gonna show this one immediately, but I'm like, this will be way too obvious if I show something that looks this fucking cool. Like, Kobody will immediately be like, yeah, obviously that one. Did I save it? Oh, I put it in another folder. Okay. Sorry, juggling too many things. I love this Toho ass.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So there was a set a couple years back that had a special set of cards that were all in Japanese with alternate arts. The English ones also had the alt arts, the one we saw before, but these are all very cool. You get stuff like the demonic tutor out of this, or the things like that. They're just like, oh god.
All right, so next WinCon, and also I'm pulling up another card that I want to show on stream just in case people don't know about it, but that will be after this.
I need to go take a wicked piss.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I'll be right back.
Yeah, cool.
I'll think about this while I'm
100%. We only have a few more, so yeah, go ahead. Take a quick break. I was gonna put up this art while we waited, because this has to be still one of the coolest Magic cards ever created. Like
a mono Liliana, I think is still like $100 minimum. So they did a series in War of the Spark where the Planeswalkers in War of the Spark all had an alternate art in Japanese. Each of them had a different artist. I think there might have been a couple that had duplicates, but because there were 36 of these. But the having a mono for a Liliana art, it's just so good.
It's so good. Yeah, it like was the first card that made me be like, maybe Liliana is kind of cool. Maybe I've been wrong. Maybe Liliana's kind of sick, actually.
Yeah, if you're wondering where you might recognize Amano from, like Final Fantasy arts are the ones you're thinking of. So
Oh, is it down to 90 now? Hell yeah.
yeah, I wanted to say like had been up to triple digit. But yeah, these were really cool. They over the last few years they've been doing a lot more of like alt arts in sets, alt arts for like different cards that get released in different packs or in like the Secret Lair stuff. There's the what was the card that was the
Oh hell yeah! There's the Junji Ito Elish Norn. Thank you. Yeah, I was looking for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Junji Ito to Elish Norn, and I was thinking of the Fist of the North Star artist. Hell, why can't I? I'm gonna. What was that card?
I'm right there with you. I'm also blanking on what it is.
All right, I'm back.
I'm trying to remember what this card was. That was
We were appreciating the cool Junji Ito Elish Norn real quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Junji Ito made some cool.
Okay. It was a Kaito from Neon Dynasty.
Ooh.
But yeah, the Amano.
Yeah, the Amano Liliana is so fucking cool, right? All right, yeah. So we only have a few cards left. I have 3 more I want you to look at, and then I'll give Slyo one last chance to throw any additional my way, and then we'll call it a wrap. But this one is Coalition Victory.
I'll be real. When I first read that, I thought it said Capitalism Victory.
It feels that way when this card is played against you.
So you win the game if you control land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. I mean, again, a lot of
There are lands that have 2 basic land types, and some now that have 3 basic land types.
Okay, that does change.
I will mention because that
evaluation.
is like a really big deal. Is there are things called triomes now that do have all 3 components? Like there'll be like an island, mountain, forest. Yeah.
Does if a creature has 3 colors, does it count?
That counts as 3 colors, correct. So if you have a 5-color creature on the field, a triome and 2 lands, that could be enough to proc Coalition.
I mean, it is very funny. And there are some situations where I could see it absolutely going off. It is also an 8-mana card, and you very much have to be building towards this to win, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's maybe just below playable, is what I would say.
So I think that's fair. I think that's about as good of an evaluation as you can get, because that's basically where this is this card is banned in Commander, but it's not really banned because it's too good. It's banned because they wanted to put a signpost that they don't want this kind of win condition to be allowed in Commander. Now, are there easier ones that kind of have snuck through since then? Yes, absolutely. But like that was the reasoning for this up front.
Yeah, in most formats, the fact that this costs 8 means that this is just like there are so many better ways to win the game before that without having this set up. But like having a card that, especially so Commander is like a multiplayer format, and to just have a card that says I win just ain't any fun. Like, cool, I win, and everyone at the table's like, all right, we're just gonna keep playing like without you.
We're just gonna play for a second, then cool. Like, have all right, take
thanks
easy.
later.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, a card that is not legal in Commander and just isn't real in anything else.
Yeah, it's too much work to engineer, and if you don't already have the win con in motion, this is the deadest draw in the universe. You would rather draw a fucking swamp. Like, it's so bad to draw if you're not gonna win with it immediately. So yeah, too much setup, and yeah, they just wanted to get rid of this. And yeah, they're not gonna ban Thassa's Oracle now because Thassa's Oracle is like too fully committal of a deck, and they've had multiple Secret Lair drop reprints. Okay, I wanted to ask you about this. one final win con I wanted to ask you about. This is Battle of Wit. Oh no, this shit's called Battle of Wits. Would you care to read it?
Go for it.
Beginning of your upkeep, if you have 200 or more cards in your library, you win the game.
So
that
fun fact about like formats. We've mentioned like deck sizes where it's like, I can play 60 or 40 or 100. In Commander, you are playing 100 cards exactly. And everything else, it's 60 plus. 40 plus. You can play whatever.
And you've played enough
There's
card
no
games
top
that
end.
You know it's like almost always beneficial to have a smaller deck size. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 200 more cards in your library, you win the game. I'm assuming that has to be at current. So if you start the game with 200 and then you draw your starting hand size, you cannot play this.
You would be under
you need to
200,
be-
correct.
it is checking on at the beginning of your turn.
Yep.
Again, seems very funny if you get hit by this. I cannot imagine anyone getting hit by this.
So, Battle of Wits is like one of the most sigh-inducing cards in the planet. It's one of the few cards that your opponent walks up, puts their deck on the table, and before you ask, you just go Battle of Wits.
So I've played this at I believe it was a modern PTQ. I went 5-1 and 2, 5-2 and 1, 5-2 and 1. And like I got to sit down at the table round 1. I pull up my deck box, I open it, I set it down. I pull up the second deck box. I pull out the deck, I set it on top. My opponent goes, I pull out the third deck box, put it on there, like, what is that? And it's like, my deck. You want to play like Commander? I'm like, no, it's my deck. And then finally there's like a note of recognition. They're like, oh fuck.
I've heard about this. Yeah, that's the
know
moment
what's doing.
Oh, this shit.
Slyo rocking up to the Magic tournament looking at one Yu-Gi-Oh player.
Yeah, 200 cards is shuffleable. It's a little annoying, but like you can do it. What if you have one of those professional shufflers? Do not put cards into a professional shuffler if you want them to have any value after that. When you have like a shuffler for cards, those decks are going to die after like three uses through it. They're very hard on cards.
You put bicycles through those because they cost $1 each. Yeah.
You don't put your dual lands and stuff through that. But yeah, you're dead on. This card is like hilarious. There are points where like people tried to play this and constructed to like not real success, but like funny success. You having a 250 card deck, you want to have ways to draw your win con. You want to have, but like you don't want to have so many shuffle effects as you're shuffling all the time.
The victory with this card is your opponent's reaction when you slam a 200 card deck on the table.
How many of those 5 wins were off Battle of Wits? All of them. The deck was a blue-black control deck that only went off of the Battle of Wits.
Yeah, it had one win con. Yeah,
it had a couple. It had like a couple of fallbacks. It had like a Moloku, a couple dragons, things like that. But all of the games that mattered were off of Battle of Wits. Like that was the way. Now there was a different tournament I went to that was just local. It was like a 16-person local tournament that I brought a deck I called Battle of Zoo. That all it was a bunch of like low-cost creatures, but it was 200 low-cost creatures all in one deck.
Word.
And then Battle of Wits. So sometimes you beat them with the creatures, and sometimes but they wouldn't expect the creatures because they saw the 200 card deck and they're like, oh, well clearly you're doing nonsense. I'm like, yes, but I'm doing different nonsense.
So I lied. I have 2 cards because I realized I've had you evaluate 0 planeswalkers, and that is it would be fucked up if we didn't. So. First one here is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. We'll run through it pretty quickly because we're getting short on time. 2 generic, 2 red. This is a Planeswalker. It is legendary, which means you can only have one on the field. If you have a Chandra, Torch of Defiance on the field and you attempt to play another Chandra, Torch of Defiance, you will have to pick and sacrifice one of them. So what Planeswalkers do is they have a loyalty counter. This one comes down starting at 4. And so she can go +1 and exile the top card of your library. You may cast it. If you don't, she deals 2 damage to each opponent. Or you can +1 add 2 red mana, or -3, 4 damage to target creature, or -7 if she's managed to build up that much and do that whole effect. You can only activate these once per each of your turns.
Okay, yeah, I kind of figured, but I was about to ask if you didn't say anything. Yeah.
And so this is the other thing. Your opponent can directly attack your planeswalkers, so they can like swing their creatures and say like, I'm hitting your Chandra Torch of Defiance, for example.
Okay, so you go in the Hearthstone rules with planeswalkers.
Kinda,
yeah. You can put creatures in the way to block, but like they are a thing that can be attacked down.
I see. Okay.
They're like sites from Eternal.
Right. Yeah, I was about to. I thought.
Sites,
I was gonna say locations, but yeah, they're called sites.
Yeah, they're like that where they can attack your site, you can block for them. They get to do their thing once per turn. You get to do it like you play it, and then on that turn you can do the thing.
Yeah, sure.
So
exile top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. It's 1, add 2 red. Chandra Torch of Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to any target.
And you can activate Planeswalker as soon as you play them. So you could spend 4 mana, put Chandra on the table, and then immediately do a -3 and deal 4 damage to a creature, and then she'd just be on the board with 1, for example. Yeah.
Is there a way to add loyalty points outside of the owns
plus abilities?
Planeswalkers?
rarely,
Yeah.
but rarely.
Rarely.
Almost never relevantly, for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah,
Almost never, you say.
almost never.
It's like very
rarely.
specific decks, yeah.
There are ways to do it. It's not a common thing.
Yeah. Proliferate
but-
exists. It's not everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it red?
Proliferate's every color gets that mechanic is like just add a counter to a thing that has a counter.
I see.
I think it's most in like blue and green these days, but it does have cards. But yes, the answer is there are ways to do it. Yes.
Sure. This card seems... If your plan is effectively, like base hunter, basically, and to borrow Hearthstone, I can only imagine this being very strong in that type of deck. Now, I don't know if that type of deck is historically very strong.
Burn is the great check that keeps the world in balance, yes. Burn is the thing that will burn aggro always has to be at least pretty good, or else Magic is in a bad spot, is kind of how it's been historically.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, yeah, I'm gonna say this card seems very strong. It seems like I can't see a reason why you wouldn't include her in a burn aggro deck.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd honestly say even a little higher than that. Chandra was playable even outside of just like a flat burn deck, because you could play Chandra as like a control piece that allowed you to draw a second card or kill creatures. The flexibility on Chandra really gave you a lot of power. But so yes, quite strong.
Or like a very, very common way I've played Chandra Torch of Defiance is, you just drop her down, destroy your opponent's most threatening creature, get to swing in with 1 more creature than you were going to be able to, hold 1 back to block, then next turn you draw an extra card, or you have 2 extra red mana, you get a little mini blood ritual basically and get to set something up. Yeah, this card's incredible. She's so flexible, so strong, like really I think a great example of what I would consider the upper limit of what is like a powerful but fun planeswalker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not talking like nutso busted, but like good.
All right, and then final card I have for you to evaluate is another planeswalker, because planeswalkers are like pretty important and pretty key to the game nowadays. They didn't exist until comparatively very recently. But yeah, this is Oko Thief of Crowns.
Weirdly enough, planeswalkers have existed for like longer than they haven't.
I'm gonna throw up, Slyo.
So 3 mana, 1 green, 1 blue. Create a food token.
So a food token is you can tap it, sacrifice it, and gain 3 life?
You pay 2 mana, sack it, gain 3 life. It's a
Okay.
little artifact that sits in play that you can use to gain 3 life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important because I
Yes.
forget tokens and counters are
A token is
tokens
like
are,
an actual
a card.
A token is basically like a card that is not a card. Like it is a thing that can exist and sit on the field.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So it is important to know what food is for like evaluating
Yeah.
this. and
So like
everything.
food
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like pay 2, gain 3 life. Yeah, not the most incredible thing, but it's because read the next line.
Yeah.
a target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with a base power and toughness 3/3. All
So
right.
basically, you can make a food, and then you can turn your food next turn into a 3/3. Yeah.
Sure.
And then last line.
Exchange control of target artifact or creature you control, and target creature an opponent controls. Sorry, the wording on this is a bit weird to me.
Yeah.
Exchange control of target creature you control and target. Oh, okay, I see. The phrase target creature threw me in.
Yeah, it's basically
Yeah,
you
so-
pick something of your opponents, you pick something of yours, and you swap them as long as it's something that's like power 3 or less, which is
Yeah.
kind of small on the smaller side.
Yeah. How many cards are there that like? I mean, I guess I shouldn't. I've seen cards that do it. Cards that sit on the board and have an impact. How many of them are there?
Like
What do you
enchantments and
mean?
artifacts, you get a pretty good amount of those.
Or yeah, I was thinking of the Lotus Cobra or whatever it's called.
Oh, like creatures with passive abilities. Yeah, there's like a pretty there's a pretty good amount of those. Yeah, and like you'll be playing a lot of those too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the plan here is you create a food token, you turn it into an elk, and then you give the elk.
Well, you could even just give them the food token. The food token
Yeah.
counts as an artifact. So
True,
you
yeah,
can
yeah,
just
yeah.
give them the food token, which is like pretty good.
But yeah, you can like so the you can make a food and then give it, or you can make something of theirs into an elk and now it's at 3 or less, and so you can swap or different things like that. There are a couple different ways that Oko has.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it loses all abilities, so you can.
So
This is basically like a polymorph, basically once per turn on your opponent's creatures if you play it that way.
yeah, they'll like transform them into elk instead of sheep.
Yeah. And are the loyalty points also like its health?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
functionally.
if like Oko has 4 loyalty and then you attack with like an elk at Oko will go to 1, and if Oko ever hits 0, the card just dies.
Yeah. That also means to get its -5, it needs to like be able to build up and not get hit at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, you can jump block as long as it doesn't have like trample and such. But
Yeah.
My first instinct says this is a very good control card, because being able to turn any of your opponent's creatures or artifacts into effectively just blank seems very strong. The food token seems kind of whatever. I mean, it does give you health, which is probably relevant in control. And I could see the final one being useful in certain situations, but it's probably
Like a little clunky.
not what you're.
to get it to
Yeah,
go
it's probably
off.
not what you're mainly playing Oko for.
So you're thinking like pretty all right, like pretty solid, strong.
Yeah, I think he found his way into probably a couple blue-green control decks.
Okay. Oko is quite possibly in the top 5 strongest cards ever printed in Magic the Gathering.
I'd put
I can
Oko
see
as,
it, yeah.
I'd put Oko as best planes as like you can easily
planeswalker.
make an argument for as planeswalker.
Yeah. So
Oko
you
Thief of
correctly
Crowns.
identified the thing that the Magic team kind of missed and didn't properly evaluate, which is spot polymorph every single turn.
Yeah, that's
is
just nuts.
crazy. And the fact is, it's a plus on the spot polymorph. So you
Yeah.
play Oko, spot
And it gains
polymorphs
health.
the thing that will kill it and then gains health, so it becomes even. Yeah, so like you put Oko down, get rid of the one thing that could possibly deal with Oko, and then next turn your opponent plays something and is like, okay, well this will deal with elk.
And if your opponent, if your opponent isn't playing things that you can turn into elk, you can just do the normal loop of make a food token, make a 3/3, make a food token, make a 3/3, and then at that point you have like a 9 loyalty Oko who can't die because Oko's loyalty is quite outrageous.
It would start being faster to just kill you instead of trying to kill the fucking Oko. Yeah, like
the Oko was initially very initially like. I would say like underrated because this card was spoiled before we knew what a food token was. So like nobody knew how to evaluate that part of it. But it became very clear that Oko was playable in every green-blue deck, which became every deck in standard because that was all you played because the best cards to counter Oko were in green and blue. There was like a blue counter spell that countered a blue card. So yeah, Oko, banned in like basically every format.
Yeah, no, spot polymorph, on every turn. Yeah, that was, once I saw that it is any creature or effect, that seems...
Yep. And the number one thing is like that being all of this, it's only 3 mana and it's a plus ability that you want to use. Because like, remember when we looked at Chandra, let's go back. So like Chandra, like I said, is a very high power, but very like fun and enjoyable planeswalker because the choice for Chandra is, do I play her and immediately play her for like fat fucking impact, but that puts her at 1 loyalty, which is super high risk? Or do I play it safe, go for the extra card or the extra, for a little bit of replacement mana, try and get like a value play going, something like that. Oko, you just put it on the field and you're like, all upside, bitch. It's all good. I'll do what I want. Who gives a fuck? I'm Oko, baby.
Oko became butt of a lot of jokes, is a huge hell dude of a card, became the focus of the last year of Magic's story in a way.
Yeah.
Because Oko is just such a jerk of a card.
What's the name of the new Oko? I need to look, because they brought Oko back and like they made him insanely worse, but also to make him more endearing, they gave him a cowboy hat.
Yeah, so
okay, that's fair.
Yeah, so Oko Ringleader, the Ringleader is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
God, I'm one of the things I'm like. Okay, like tomorrow, Thunder Junction comes out, which is this set.
Set? What are you gonna do, Sly? Are you gonna play some of it?
I'm gonna be playing some of it tomorrow.
On stream, maybe.
You?
On stream, yeah. I'm
what
gonna
time?
be weird.
What channel?
Over at Twitch.tv/Slionine, and you can check that out. We'll be starting at let's say 6 Central.
Wow, well, I sure do hope you draft
7 EST for those who are on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Some Okos.
So yeah, Oko here still makes an elk, but has to minus for the
Has
elk.
to minus, yeah.
That's so crazy, right? Yeah.
Also,
You can't polymorph something
I'd like
into
to,
it, yeah.
I'd like to note Oko's plus that says if you've committed a crime.
Committing a crime is a new mechanic they're adding, which is if you use a spell or ability that targets. So as soon as you point something at someone,
Once you point a gun.
Yeah, if you target your opponent or any of their stuff, that's crime.
That's cute. I like that.
So, but yeah, Oko. One of the things about this set is that the other Oko's in it. So the draft in this format's gonna be. We're gonna be seeing Oko again. Yeah, the other Oko is on like a bonus sheet so that you can pull it out of the draft packs. So you can, yeah.
But yeah, so also to note, Kobuddy, this Oko costs 1 more and enters the field with 1 less loyalty and then has to minus. So the other one comes in 1 turn earlier with 1 more loyalty and then goes up by 1 instead of down by 1. That motherfucker hits on turn 3, has 5 loyalty and polymorphed you. Hell on earth.
Can you find the alternate art Oko? There's an alternate art that has Oko kind of riding on an elk. It's really nice.
Is that Ringleader?
It's the same name. Same Ringleader.
Okay. Let me Oko Ringleader. Ooh, Scryfall's being a little laggy.
it dies to wrath if you cast it post combat, but you probably don't want to do that. Because this Oko could become a copy of a creature for that turn. It's only on your turn, not your opponent's.
Yo, I just saw the copy token that apparently is this with this. Oh, okay, I see the one you're talking about. That is, damn, that's a beautiful man. That's a beautiful man on a beautiful animal.
Yeah, there should be, like, I love the elk on it.
Oh, yeah.
There it is, yeah! The elk's got this great expression.
Oh, and then, speaking of Secret Lair art, they also have these ones that they're printing, which are tight as fuck. I think these are so sick. Ooh. It's me, the Guilty Gear fan, who thinks putting wanted posters of your characters is sick as fuck, and you should do it.
That's very cool, yeah.
Also, the one I had mentioned that I was like, ooh, because occasionally they have very cool ones of these. And then I'll have to sign off is they'll put in new cool tokens. And the new copy token for Outlaws of Thunder Junction is kind of sick. I kind of like this one a lot.
That's aesthetic.
Yeah, I'm into that. Yeah. All right, well, Co-Buddy, you did... honestly, way better than I expected. Magic's a really hard game, and we went out of our way to pick some tricky ones that, like, straight up, the people who are paid full-time for their job to design Magic cards misevaluated. So the fact that you were on the ball for some of those is downright incredible. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for...
I'm so sick of Lotus!
Next time you see 3 mana or draw 3 cards, you're gonna be like, that shit's crazy. Speaking of which, we never got to Hogakker's Treasure Cruise, but in case you're wondering, if a card says Delve, it's fucked up. And thank you, Slyo, for joining me, helping pick out a bunch of these cards, talking through the history, all that stuff. I appreciate it as always, man.
Yeah, love it.
I actually have...
plug your stuff. Just go ahead. Go.
Yeah, so this Friday, big stream. Gonna have 3 whole Death Notes episodes in a row. Hopefully gonna be sponsored by AFKJourney. Nice. Got Matt, Tina Hacks, Dubs, Ilion, T-Jabs, whole bunch of people are gonna be there.
Hell yeah. So yeah, check that out. Twitch.tv/CoBuddy with an underscore, I believe.
With an underscore.
With an underscore. And I'm Ty Tuesday. Y'all already probably knew that if you're here, but if not, I'm Ty. I stream 5 days a week. I'll be here tomorrow doing some dumb shit. I'll have a schedule out soon, but I do dumb stuff every day. We've got some wild stuff coming down the pipes in the near future with crowd control related stuff I'm putting together. I'm gonna go record an episode of a podcast though. Thank you for joining me. I'm raiding y'all over to Doc, who's playing a little bit of that end game of Final Fantasy XIV currently before the new expansion comes out. I'll catch y'all later.